Happy Hump Day, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 792 on FM. Happy to be with you. Fun show lined up for you. Phil Steele, publisher of the Phil Steele College Football Preview. He is going to join us in half an hour. We've got Sammy Mora jumping on right after post-practice availability. Assistant coaches today. Sammy will be joining us at 1 o'clock. DeLon Wright, the former running Ute, longtime NBA veteran, and will be a 2026 inductee into the Utah Athletics Hall of Fame. He's going to join us at 1:30. Looking forward to that conversation with DeLon coming up here as we get closer to the end of the show. That'll be at 1:30. Utah football in action. Sound is available at ESPN700sports.com on the ESPN 700 app. We'll probably bring back some of yesterday's sound for you at noon if we're not already in possession of today's sound, which I don't think we will be if I remember my junk mail properly. My junk mail, of course, is the official correspondence. Yeah, it's 11:30 to 12, so we're not going to have it quite in time. Let's see. We've got some more junk mail today. This is what the schedule is going to look like for you if you are attending home games. All right. September 3rd, home opener. We're doing Stripe the Stadium. All right. So it's going to be red and white, section by section. That is the Muss appreciation game as well. So Muss T-shirts and such. All of you Zennials and Millennials and Gen Alphas. Are we on Gen Alpha now? Is that what we're on? I don't remember.
I think we might be on Gen Alpha. I think that's the youngest one now.
I have a hard time.
Was it Gen I at one point too? I don't even know.
I truly have no idea. All of you kids that have a hard time keeping your attention span dialed in for the entire football game, well, you are the Muss, and we appreciate you, and we love the fact that is the one time in life that you're able to put down your phones. So Muss appreciation.
Or, watch the game through your phone while you're documenting you being in the stands. Whatever you do.
Whatever it is you do.
We love that. We appreciate it.
Stripe at the stadium for Muss appreciation. That is the home opener against Idaho. The following weekend, as Arkansas comes to town for a rare SEC trip to the mountains. That is a red out, and that is the Ring of Honor induction of the legend, Mr. Utah football, Eric Weddle. That's a good one. Get your butts there half an hour early and make sure you don't miss anything.
I think red out's a good choice for that too, to coincide with the great Ring of Honor induction. Absolutely.
100%. He's a traditionalist, and red on red is Utah's best look.
Oh yeah.
So red out for, and I wouldn't be surprised if he asked for that. You know what I mean? Because remember, when we had him on the show after the announcement of his Ring of Honor induction, he said, I wanted to make sure that they weren't putting me into this thing against Idaho. I wanted it to be a real opponent, a real game. If I'm coming to town, if I'm doing the thing, I want it to be a real game. So maybe he also was just like, also, I want you to wear red. Also,
yeah,
put a number 32 patch on every one of the jerseys. I don't know.
I'll bet he had some influence on it being a red out, absolutely. And the other thing is like, oh, by the way, I'm only going to be there for like maybe 24 hours because I'll have just coached a Friday night football game against a Utah school, but in San Diego, right? So
he's
got to be worthwhile for him. Absolutely.
And shortly after that, he's flying to watch his middle daughter compete in an international acrobatics competition. So
that's right.
The man's got a lot, right? Yeah, he's got a lot going on. September 19th, Ute Proud game, and that will coincide with the Hall of Fame. So at halftime, you'll have the Ute Proud performance, and you'll have DeLon Wright and company, who are the inductees.
Zane Beatles.
Zane Beatles is going in. DeLon Wright is going in.
You've got
Daria Bijak's going in, right? You've got the softball team from
that's right.
1991.
So remember, Coach told us that there was 14 players on the team. I wonder if all of them will be there
She said all of them are coming
on the field. That'll be really cool.
She
to
said
have
it's going to be all
there.
of them. I mean, Shermel Green is
yeah,
already.
I mean, she'll be there.
She's there every week,
working for the athletic department. Shout out to Charmel, but Coach Amy Hogue said there's only 14 rosters. And just a quick aside, my aunt played college softball in California, and I told you off air we had a recent family get together. And I told her about this 56-inning doubleheader, and her jaw dropped, right? And I was telling her, hey, it was only like a 30-minute break or 20-minute break between games. One pitcher may have pitched over 50 innings, and she's like, that sounds like 1991. That's there's no way that could have been any more recent than that. Absolutely.
Yes, you're not getting away with that these days. But yeah, we look forward to the Hall of Fame game.
That's the
October
Utah State
10th.
game, by the way, too. So good time to flex your muscle. Be like, here's our Hall of Famers, Aggies.
October 10th, Kansas. How about this? To be announced. ... So, to me, that screams a couple of possibilities. The strongest of which is hand-painted helmets. That is one of the big rollout things that Utah football does, that the Utah equipment staff does, and usually they try to keep it under wraps for a little while. So October 10th, Kansas to be announced.
Also possibly blackout. Maybe that's what they're reserving if that ends up being a night game, which the kickoff time has not been announced.
That would be
yet.
the second strong possibility, a blackout game. And maybe you do both. Maybe it's a hand-painted blackout. Maybe you double up on it. October 24th against Houston, homecoming and parent-family weekend. That is one of the tougher matchups on the schedule. Again, it's one you're glad to have at home. Arizona and TCU on the road. Yikes. BYU at home. That's a tough stretch for Utah football. The November 7th game against BYU will also be a red out, which is the correct decision. BYU, typically, you go home and home. Typically, it'll be Utah in their red and BYU in their royal blues, and that is a visually appealing game on the television set. It's the right thing to do.
Red on red for Utah, blue on blue for BYU. Typically,
it's the best look.
And I'm. BYU fans that make it into Rice-Eccles Stadium, I hope you're going blue out as well, just for that aesthetic too. That'd be fantastic.
I hope they all do the Kalani, as Jerem Jordan has called it, where they wear some navy and some royal.
Yeah,
and it's just kind of like a little disjointed. I hope everyone does it. I hope they're all wearing their braided belts.
It's just
and whatever the fashion time warp they got stuck in. That's one thing that is a very BYU fan thing. When I think of BYU fans, I think of guys of all different ages who are still wearing the fashion of their prime. That's something that is quintessentially Utah County and quintessentially BYU.
I had a braided belt growing up, going to church. I definitely did. Absolutely.
And I think I used to make fun of it until I got old enough that I also was like, yeah, this is also me now. I like
your braided belt guy with your jorts.
I used to make fun of the fact that, when I was going to BYU games and Utah games and I was watching BYU football games in like the 2010s, and there was all these guys that were in their 30s and 40s that were wearing K-Swiss sneakers and braided belts and looking like, whatever the fashion time warp of the years when they left on their mission or right when they got back home from their mission, like their prime.
Yeah.
That's just something that people do, right? And then
got love for my shoes, K-Swiss.
And then I realized, like, oh, yeah, it just happens to you at some point when you become like an old random dad and you're like, I'm just going to wear whatever.
This is comfortable for me.
Like,
what of it?
I'm not buying any new clothes. I'm spending all that on the kids. So, yeah, that's a very BYU thing. And it's one of the things that you'll see less of at Rice-Eccles Stadium. You'll see more of at LaVell Edwards Stadium, but it's great. It's like, okay, that guy graduated high school in 1998. I can tell by what he's wearing right now. That guy, early 2000s. That guy, 2015. That guy, he's a young kid, so he's wearing like the same stuff that the guy in 1998 is wearing. It's just a thing.
Yeah, because that 90s fashion's coming back around for sure.
So that'll be fun. It's also military appreciation. It'd be kind of cool to see a little red camo stripe on the uniform. I'm not trying to not full camo. We know what those were. Those digital camo jerseys against TCU or whatever. We're not doing that.
Could it be? I don't know if I'd want this actually with the traditional red out when the uniforms too, OC. But maybe I was about to say maybe a camo helmet, but I don't know if I'd want that. You want the red helmet.
Yeah, if it was not a BYU game for military appreciation, I'd be like, yeah, go ahead, do your thing. It's kind of like when Notre Dame does the Shamrock Series game, where once a year they wear the Shamrock Series uniforms, and you're just like, all right, you can have 1 week a year where it's time for Notre Dame to experiment. Every other week, I want you wearing Golden Dome, navy blue, gold pants. If you have to wear white because you're on the road, fine. But
the only other thing that we're okay with is the occasional green alternate road.
And you know
uniform
what? I'm
uniform.
one of the rare people who grew up as a Notre Dame fan. I don't like the green. And you know why I don't like the green? Because I can't remember which year it was when Tyrone Willingham had Notre Dame off to a great start.
Yep, I remember that.
And then he busted out the green against like USC or Stanford or something, and they got mollywopped.
And they had a bad end of the season. I remember that.
And it was like the green cursed it. I was like, never mind, get rid of the green.
That was when it was like, okay, bring on Charlie Weiss.
I do have a green Manti Te'o jersey.
Oh,
somewhere in my house. And
why'd you go with green when you bought the jersey?
Well, I knew you were going to ask that question, and because I'm a notorious cheapskate, I bought the green one because it was on sale.
It was the most affordable.
It was because look, when you go to the Notre Dame bookstore is outrageous, right? And when you go to the Notre Dame bookstore, you can buy anything Notre Dame, anything. You want a pair of like boxer shorts Notre Dame? Of course they have those. You want like cufflinks that are Notre Dame cufflinks? Of course they have those. You want an ascot that you wear to an overly traditional wedding? They have a Notre Dame version of that. You can buy anything. It's overwhelming, but it's all insanely expensive.
So this was in South Bend. You were there.
South Bend.
Was this when Utah played?
It was actually in 2012.
Okay, so the year
BYU.
Okay, so the year that Manti Te'o was like maybe he was a Heisman finalist, and they go to the national championship game.
Yes, it was that year. It was that year when BYU, were it not for two errant throws, would have beat Notre Dame at Notre Dame. I mean, wide open, behind the defense, missed the throw kind of situations. I can't remember who it was. A member of the BYU media got kicked out of the press box because they were cheering loudly for BYU.
Oh, man.
And lamenting vocally when BYU would make a mistake. But anyway, you got to go. Anytime you get an opportunity, go to Notre Dame Stadium, touchdown Jesus. It's unbelievable. But, yes, the long story made longer because that's how I am. I got the Manti Te'o green jersey because I'm a cheapskate.
All right.
And the navy blue was like full price, however much, like, $150.
And you've regretted it ever since.
And I got the green one because I was like, I'll pay $68. I'm not going to pay $150. Different days. Now I might splurge for the. You know what? Let's get Manti on the show, and we'll just have. He's probably got a Manti Te'o jersey laying around.
Do you mind just giving us one of your Navy ones?
I'll say this, Manti.
We'll hang it up.
Anyone related to Manti, anyone who knows Manti, I will, to the chagrin of Spence and James and Porter and everyone else, if we get a Manti Te'o jersey, I will hang it here in the Home of the Utes studio. That's how big of a fan of Manti Te'o I am.
Just as long as we don't cover Britton Covey.
I won't cover Britton. I would never blaspheme in such a way as to cover Britton Covey.
Shout out to Britton. We one more game on this OC as we went on that diatribe there. West Virginia is senior day.
Yeah.
Which, of course, that's always the big theme at the end of the season.
You put on the Green Day music, You bump a little vitamin C, right? As we go on, we remember. And everyone sheds a little
Friends
tear.
forever.
Yes. Yeah.
Remember we played that for Andy Larson on his
Yeah.
last show as a Utah Jazz beat writer, and he's like, "This is a little too old for me."
Here's what we're gonna do. Presuming that Devin Dampier plans to go pro after this year, and
we'll play vitamin C,
and he doesn't want to come back for a 5th year of eligibility for the University of Utah. We will play when we
play him out.
We'll play him out. We'll give him the choice. He can have vitamin C or he can have Green Day, Time of Our Lives.
Yeah, Time of Our Lives. That's right.
And he can just choose whichever one he wants. And he'll be like, I've never heard either of these songs.
Yeah, he's like, these are both made before I was born.
These are on oldies stations now. Man. Anyway, that's your schedule. Stripe the stadium, red out, Ute Proud Hall of Fame. The to be announced with Kansas. I'm gonna take it as ominous.
Yeah.
To be announced.
Well, it's interesting.
Bum, bum, bum.
It's interesting that it's Kansas as the opponent too. That they're like, we're undecided. Like, this is Kansas. We got to do something special for when Kansas is in town.
Well,
I don't know.
You know what I think? You know what I think it is? I think you can do something wild and outlandish when it's Kansas.
Okay.
You're like, we're gonna win this game. So we're having, I don't know, inflatable uniforms that week.
you know what it needs to be? It needs to be Bill Riley's face on the helmet. University of Kansas grad.
No. No, we don't want that. No.
Shout out to Bill.
Shout out to Bill, but that's too far. That is a bridge too far.
He's cringing
friend.
Somewhere.
That's
now,
too much.
Hearing me say that.
Maybe that's the game where, you know, the new helmet pads, the helmet uglies that they wear for the anti-concussion things.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that's like a mental health awareness game.
Yes.
And they actually play the game wearing the big protector.
Yes.
Everyone.
Guardian caps.
Yeah, the Guardian
Everyone's
cap.
Wearing,
that's what it's called.
Everyone has to wear a Guardian cap.
Even Kansas has to do it. They're just like, I don't want to put this on. Got to do it.
It's mental health awareness.
So that is the
Player Safety Awareness Week.
That is the home game schedule for all of you who are planning your fashion accordingly. Here on the home of the Utes. This is, by the way, I don't even want to say sneaky because it's not all that sneaky. This is a monumental week in college sports. In college football and college basketball, particularly because those are the revenue sports that have upset the apple cart, that have changed everything. So I don't like to get overly political on the show, obviously, but there is a scheduled recess coming up on Friday for Congress. And it's why, in concurrence with Big Ten Media Days last week, everyone was like, hey, let's get an agreement. Are you guys going to support the Protect College Sports Act? Are you going to jump on board with the SEC? Are you going to break away? What's happening here? And I was out for PFL duties, as I will be again in the final couple days of this week. So we weren't able to talk as much as I wanted to about that. But it was actually kind of an 11th hour sort of Hail Mary thing that the SEC and the Big Ten actually jumped on board and said, yeah, you know what? We will add our support, which is, let's be honest, it's the support that actually matters in college football. We will add our support to the Protect College Sports Act. They were given some concessions on language, basically, and said, all right, fine. Yes, something needs to be done. And a lot of that was driven by coaches, which is another important thing. A lot of folks that I talked to, the university presidents, the athletic directors, the machinations, the power brokers in college football are indexing toward what? They're indexing toward maximizing profit. And they're not really as worried about the competitive balance or the competitive integrity or the competitive anything in college sports. So there were coaches, thankfully vocal, influential coaches, that helped push this thing along like, yeah, I know we're here at Oregon and we benefit from the current system as it exists. But you know what? It still makes my job harder. Dan Lanning has it as good as anybody in college football could ever imagine it being. He has an incredibly high personal salary. He has basically bottomless pockets in his booster base, starting with Phil Knight. He's got the best facilities in the business. He's got a private jet he can fly to whatever far-reaching locale in college football, or in high school football, or in college football, to recruit incoming players and transfers. He's got it as good as anybody. And even he is like, yeah, this is not really sustainable. Because at some point, you're going to need people to play for 12 weeks out of the year, not just 9 weeks out of the year, or not just 7 weeks out of the year, whatever the final tally is of teams that can actually compete at that level. So even the big-time power brokers were like, yes, while the system probably benefits us right now, we can help protect college sports without breaking a system or really stacking it against us. And the Big Ten and the SEC finally got on board with the Protect College Sports Act. And then the president was on Monday making some comments about how confident he is that this thing is going to get pushed through and signed. The quote was, the NIL or whatever it is, very close to getting solved. I don't think that's exactly top priority for the president. The NIL or whatever it is just a wonderful quote. And to be fair, I never wanted politics to be involved in this at all. I never wanted the government to have to step in and fix this. But because, to use a phrase I use too much, the adults in the room have failed in otherwise installing safeguards that can keep Utah football viable, Utah State football viable, BYU football viable, the government is being asked to do something that would preempt all these random whatever district judges saying like, oh, here's an injunction, here's another injunction, here's another injunction. Last week it was a decision made in the state of Colorado that will allow fifth-year players that graduated, that expired, their eligibility expired in the 2025-2026 academic year. They've said, well, no, now you have more eligibility. It's why Nakari Rogers might end up back in college football, maybe as a member of the Utah football team. Indiana, the same Indiana team that won a national championship last year, gets their best defensive lineman back because of this Colorado injunction. Stephen Daly was an honorable mention all Big Ten selection last year. I don't know why he was only that. He had 19 tackles for loss and 5.5 sacks. He ranked third nationally last year in tackles for loss. Now, I have my doubts about how in shape he is, how ready to go he's going to be at the beginning of Indiana's season, but there was a district court ruling in the state of Colorado that says, yeah, guys like that can come back. I think Lander Barton was a guy who was actually would have had the option.
Yeah, he is.
Class of 22.
He's technically eligible if he wants to return and if Utah wants him back. That's interesting.
Well, having spoken with Lander late last year, I think that he either wants to be in the NFL or on the ranch, and there's not a whole lot of middle ground.
I don't think he's back on the roster this year, and it's probably his choice. I don't think that it would be Morgan Scalley saying, hey, we don't want a fifth-year senior linebacker who's been pretty productive for us.
Look, I'll be honest, if Lander listened to yahoos like myself talking about his performances on the radio last year, he's probably like, dude, I don't really care.
I don't really care.
I don't want to come back. Probably. I don't know. But this vote will or will not take place, be pushed through, be finalized on the Protect College Sports Act before the recess that is coming up in 2 days. We might have some structure, some at least an important initial step toward, well, protecting college sports, for lack of a better term, as soon as this week, or if it doesn't get pushed through, we're talking about more uncertainty swirling in the background of another college football season where they have to make a decision about expanding the college football playoff before the end of this year. There's just a lot going on behind the scenes. I have not seen the official revised bill after the Big Ten and SEC decided to get on board.
So, I believe it was Ross Dellinger, Yahoo Sports, when he was one of the ones that broke the story that Big Ten and SEC are on board. His story said that there's still the 5 year of independence. That is what the Big Ten. That's part of what the Big Ten and SEC are going to support. That they're going to support the cap of 19 teams per conference as well. So that's the thing I was looking for. I'm like, is that changing? It doesn't appear to be changing after the Big Ten and SEC have thrown their weight towards the support of this.
So while there's a lot of people in college sports probably hoping this goes through, I'd love to get Mark Harlan in studio to talk with us about this soon, because what it does is the new bill, the adjustment on the new bill, increases an effective salary cap to $48.8 million.
That's right, and that includes NIL money. So
there's no salary cap circumvention through quote unquote associated entities.
Yeah, so you have the 20-something million that's the agreed from the school's revenue sharing, and then you only have another 20 to 25 million-ish of NIL deals, and these deals have to be legitimate NIL endorsement-type deals.
And interestingly enough, and I want to know the exact particulars of the language, but that 22.5, it comes out to $22.5 million earmarked for player retention.
Yeah.
The language being player retention, not player acquisition, is really interesting for me.
Yeah, me too.
Does it mean that you have to spend that money on players who've already been part of your roster rather than giving it to transfers that are coming in?
Yeah, keep them out, keeping players out of the transfer portal instead of signing free agents, if you will.
If you're a swimmer, good news, $5 million is reserved for Olympic sports. So a $48.8 million cap, I don't think Utah Athletics can meet that cap without the help of Crimson Brand Partners. The timing of this might have been, this is either going to be the most genius forethought type decision, or it's going to be, a terrifying reality as we move forward. But the Protect College Sports Act, that as constructed, may be pushed through, will allow for a $48.8 million hard cap with no loopholes, according to Ted Cruz, and $5 million of that reserved for Olympic sports. That's an expensive bill for athletic departments to have to come up with every single year.
And it also puts the question out there, can the College Sports Commission / NCAA really enforce these things? And we'll see if and when this bill gets passed and turns into law. We'll see if the enforcement teeth that this is intending to give to the NCAA / the College Sports Commission / whatever body that gets created from this point forward to help enforce these things, actually is able to enforce these things.
Well, Kyle Whittingham was among a lot of coaches. You heard Morgan Scalley express some of the same stuff. Kurt Signetti talked about this. Even Lincoln Riley was like, yeah, we're hurtling towards $50 million a year rosters in college football. This would theoretically cap that and make that an impossibility. This is an athletic department thing. $48.8 million is a stretch for most teams, most programs in the Big 10, in the Big 12, most ACC programs. It's obviously more than group of 6 programs can handle. It's right where the Big Ten and the SEC are willing to stay. That's why they decided to support this thing. And if this comes with also, hey, yeah, we'll make sure that we can't expand beyond 19 teams, that's not good news for Utah. However, this is not going to be all that long term either. This is going to end up, if it's signed and done, it's going to be like a 4-year thing. So keep an eye on it. Phil Steele publishes the #1 college football preview magazine in the land every single year. We're going to pick his brain about Utah football, the Big 12, and much more next on the Sean O'Connell Show. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.
You're tuned to the Sean O'Connell Show from the Murdoch Chevrolet studio of ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.
College football season is right around the corner, and if you have not acquired your copy of Phil Steele's college football preview for 2026, you're already a little bit behind because you have 370-ish pages you're going to have to get through before Utah kicks off on September 3rd. We are lucky enough today to have the man himself, Phil Steele, on the program. Phil, welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. How are you, sir?
You know, I am doing great today, Sean. How about yourself?
Man, we're excited. Football is back. Utah is in camp. BYU starts camp today. Utah State starts camp today. And you just can't ask for anything better on a beautiful August afternoon, August morning here in Salt Lake City.
And everyone is undefeated right now, right?
That's exactly right. Now, let's start there because it's a really interesting time for Utah football and for Utah football fans. And every season this time of year, we're like, yeah, we know what we have. You've got a conservative but impressive coach. You've got a physical front line on both sides of the football. Hopefully you've got a decent quarterback. You definitely have a good running back, and you can just put it in there. You can plug it in every single year. And then around December of 2025, that 21-year trend starts to get shaken up. And now we've got a new head coach. You've got 5 new starters on the offensive line. You've got new starters on the defensive line. You've got new position coaches all over the place. And the consistency and the constancy of Utah football is, for once, interrupted and gone. So how does Phil Steele look at this version of Utah football?
Well, you know, Sean, the way you described Utah football, that's how you could describe Michigan football this year. Coach Whittingham does have the run game, the offensive line, the defensive line, and quarterback at Michigan, so he's in pretty good shape there. And I got to be honest with you, Sean, when I first heard Whittingham's leaving and all 5 offensive linemen gone, 2 first-round draft picks for crying out loud, defensive line basically gone from last year, I'm like, I don't know. Utah's going to take a big step back. But then after going over to the team with Coach Scally and seeing the talent they have at those positions, as long as that offensive line comes together, that's really the biggest question mark on the team is the offensive line. If that comes together, I mean, they've got the quarterbacks. I like both Devin Dampier and Bird Ficklin. I think you're going to see both of those guys on the field at the same time at times. The running back core is deep with Wayshawn Parker, Daniel Bray, and they add in from San Jose State Steve Chavez Soto. So that's a deep running back core. I think there's talent at receiver. In fact, the shocking thing to me when I went over the team with Coach Scally is he said that this is the best wide receiver core he's had here in the last 20 years. And he's been around quite some time. And I think having a coach that's been on the staff, knows the players, has been there with the defense, that helps the transition. If there's a new coach coming in with new offense, new defense, and everything's completely different, had to learn the players learn the system, it'd be different. But the fact he's still here helps a lot. And you look at the talent they have on the defensive side of the ball. I like Jonathan Hall at linebacker, Elijah Davis at corner, Rabbit Evans at strong safety. These guys are all conference caliber. Defensive end Lance Holtzclaw only started 1 game last year, but I think he's going to step up and be that pass rusher and add to the defense there. And then when I looked at the schedule is actually manageable. They get BYU at home. They do have to play at Arizona and at TCU, 2 tough games. But actually one of my 9 sets of power ratings called for 12-0 this year. Now, naturally not my main one, but I think Utah's got the schedule and the fact that they've got a little run into the season with Idaho, Arkansas, Utah State, Iowa State, and Kansas, first 5 games, should be able to build some confidence and hopefully confidence in that offensive line.
That's obviously the hope, and I want to go back to one of the things that you just said there, that the 2 quarterbacks. Everyone here loves Bird Ficklin. Everyone here loves Devin Dampier. You said you think they'll be on the field at the same time. I hope we get a lot of that, honestly, because it could really cause problems for an opposing defensive coordinator. But let's say that they're going with, a little bit of that Chris Leak, Tim Tebow situation from the old days at Florida, or as much use of a 2-quarterback system as is allowable in modern football. How do you think it shakes out? I mean, Devin Dampier, when he's healthy, is incredibly impressive, incredibly mobile. I think he'll be more accurate. He didn't have really a solid base to throw from in a lot of games last year, and people were critical of him because of that. Bert Ficklin has a crazy live arm, and I think if he can dial in the accuracy, he'll be a great passer in addition to his running instincts. What is an appropriate split in your mind to make this the most productive offense possible?
Well, I think I'd go with something like a 70-30. I like the way it ran the offense last year. And can the two-quarterback system work? Well, how about 41 points per game and 483 yards per game last year? Now, once again, working behind the rebuild offensive line, I don't think the offense will be quite as potent as last year. These guys may have to use the mobility a little bit more. I'd stick with Dampier as the starter, but love it when Bird Ficklin comes in the field. And there's not a drop-off. Sometimes, having the two different types of slightly different types of quarterbacks is a struggle for a defensive coordinator coming into the game.
If they're capable of going 12-0, but more realistically, we can target something like 9-3 or 10-2. I mean, for a first-year head coach, although he has been in the program for a long time, you've been studying all of college football at every level for years and years and years now. How rare is that air if you can be a first-year head coach and be in that 9-win, 10-win category?
Well, being on the staff is big. Having him there with the knowledge of the team, and I'll give you a couple other examples from this year. You take a look at Ole Miss this season. They've got their brand new head coach. Lane Kiffin is gone, but their head coach they have actually had a couple games as head coach last year, and Pete Golding. It steps into a really good situation, good talent throughout that roster. And then you take a look at like Virginia Tech. One of the best things James Franklin did was retaining Brent Pry as the defense coordinator. Got fired as head coach, brings him back as the DC, gave him instant knowledge of all the players on the team because Brent Pry had that knowledge. So I think the fact that Morgan Scalley's been there, knows all the players inside and out, both offensively and defensively, that's a massive advantage to have for a first-year head coach.
Of course, we're all optimistic about where Utah will be this year, but they feel the same in Lubbock. They feel the same in Provo, and maybe they have even more justification to feel that way. I know folks down in Tucson are feeling good about what they've got, and TCU has some thoughts on who should factor into the conference championship discussion. So let's assume that Utah's schedule is as friendly as we think it is. Where do they really fit in the Big 12 power rankings for you, Phil?
Well, right now I've got them number 3 behind Texas Tech and BYU, but Utah does get to host that BYU game, and last year's game was, if not for all those fourth down stops, Utah had a better shot at winning that one. Now, when I went through the roster with Kalani Sitake, I've gone through the roster with him all 11 years. This is the best team he's put on the field. So when you look at the offensive line, it's massive. I have no questions about their offensive line, unlike Utah. Bruce Mitchell is a NFL caliber center, and they've got plenty of talent, plenty of size. In fact, Coach Sitake's comfortable going 3 deep on the offensive line. Most coaches always like to tell me, I go, who's your top 8? And they give me their top 8, and they'll say, hey, Phil, this year I think we have top 9. Coach Sitake was saying, hey, we actually go 3 deep on the offensive line, so we'll see if that's the case. Defensively, they're loaded up front. I mean, they've got Justin Kirkland, who I think is going to emerge this year to go along with Tanavasa. And once again, the size you have in the defensive front 7, the experience level you have, and they lose a guy like Jack Kelly, but they bring back bring in Cade Olavi from Cal, who's one of the best linebackers in the country. So that's an equal swap right there. Secondary's got Evan Johnson, who's NFL caliber, Satula, and then you go to the backfield, and Bear Bachmeier didn't even join the team until the fall last year. He's in there now. I love watching a 47-play quarterback, and then L.J. Martin at running back. This is a very, very talented and the best team that when I hung up the phone with Coach Sitake, in fact, I told him before I hung up the phone, I go, Coach, I feel this is the best team you've had here in your last 11 years.
That is the fear. Right here on the home of the Utes, that is the fear that a lot of people are feeling, where there's some changeover at Utah. So much consistency, despite losing your defensive coordinator. You didn't lose really any transfers off the roster. Kalani and company have done an incredible job of retention and of recruiting in this new era, this new NIL era for BYU sports.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you asked me about the top contenders. I think when you look at Texas Tech, a lot of folks have asked me, Sean, they say, hey, Phil, do you feel less about Texas Tech that they don't have Brandon Sorsby? And I said, well, here's the deal. When I wrote the magazine, it's June 5th. We're just heading to the deadline. I'm like, you know what? I'm 90% sure they're not going to let this guy play football this year. So my power ratings were adjusted to Sorsby not playing, even though I listed him as starter in the magazine. I don't ever want to watch a player on TV if he's got a chance of playing and have him not in my magazine. So I listed him, but I didn't think he was going to play. Then all of a sudden they announced, hey, he's going to be eligible. I'm like, damn, I got to adjust my power ratings. And then, of course, he's not eligible, so it's right back to where I had. And when you look at Texas Tech, they've got some money. I don't know if you've heard about that. And they bring in some pretty good-sized recruits coming in, like Austin Romaine from Kansas State, Adam Trick from Miami of Ohio. In fact, when I went over the roster with Coach McGuire and you look at that defensive front seven, I think 6 of them are NFL caliber dudes. And then you've got Bryce Pollock at cornerback, Brendan Jordan at safety. These guys are all very talented. Offensively, quarterback is a question mark because of Will Hammond's injury situation. I think if Will Hammond was 100% healthy, they might not even have signed a starter from somebody else. They did bring in Tulsa's quarterback, Kirk Francis, but you look at a running back room, and here's the thing that's scary. They had Cam Dickey and Jacoby Williams back, right? Guess who got Coach McGuire was most excited about running backs? Quentin Joyner. He says he might have been the best running back last year, missed the year with injury. He's back, along with Williams and Dickey. That's one of the best running back corps in the country. Once again, the offensive line veteran unit, NFL caliber left tackle and Howard Sampson, NFL caliber right tackle and Jacob Ponton. You look at the receiving corps, Micah Hudson could finally come into his own this year. They got one of the best tight ends in the country in Terrence Carter. And when I go through their schedule, I don't have them an underdog in any game. In fact, I don't have them less than a touchdown favorite in every game. Their 2 toughest road games are at Cincinnati and at Baylor. And each game I've got them a touchdown favorite. They don't play Utah. And they don't play BYU during the regular season. Good for BYU, good for Utah, good for Texas Tech. You're going to have some strength at the very top of the Big 12 this year, and Texas Tech is my pick to win the conference.
Phil Steele is our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, publisher of the #1 college football preview magazine in the country every single year. Get it right now, 370-plus pages of college football information that'll make you look and sound a lot smarter when you're talking the game with your friends at work or your buddies at the poker game or whatever else. This is a familiar refrain for folks that have listened to my shows wherever I've been. First, it was when Utah was in the Pac-12, and it was like, hey, even if you're the best Pac-12 team, where do you fit in nationally? And the same sort of sentiment has followed Utah and BYU into the Big 12. If you're the best Big 12 team, where do you fit in nationally? Texas Tech was great. They were dominant last year in the conference, and then made it to the college football playoff and laid a big fat egg. And so that narrative kind of continues. When you look at this year's Big 12 conference and the power rankings that we've already kind of gone over, where do those teams fit in the national landscape?
Yeah, it's interesting that what you talked about with Texas Tech. They got shut out in the playoff last year. And, when I talked to Coach McGuire, one of his biggest concerns this spring was how do we contend with that doggone bye? When you're off for 3 or 4 weeks and your opponent just played last week, there's been 8 instances of that happening. 7 times the team off the bye has lost the game. The only guy that's been able to get past it was Coach Cignetti at Indiana. And so Coach McGuire said he was talking to FCS coaches, trying to figure out how they battle, having 3 weeks off versus 1 for their opponent. And I think that is a big-time question for whoever wins the Big 12 this year because they'll likely get a bye. Also, when I talked to Coach McGuire, he felt that with Sorsby, they were a legitimate national title contender right at the top with all the other big boys. And without him, he thought they're a playoff team and possibly get there, but didn't feel quite as confident. And that's about where I have Texas Tech. I've got them on the season coming into the year. Number 9. I got BYU number 10, and I have Utah number 24 in my rankings. So I think all 3 are going to be legitimate playoff contenders at the end of the year. I think when you make the playoff, as Miami of Florida showed last year, I mean, the ACC and the Big 12 were sort of similar. Neither one's the SEC, neither one's the Big 10. Yet Miami of Florida last year was within one play of winning the national title. I think once you get into the playoff, if you can overcome that bye week, then all of a sudden it's anybody's game. Who's playing the best in the postseason?
I don't know how many people in our country get a chance to have the kind of access year over year over year to these coaches and these teams. And obviously you've put in the work to make that a reality for yourself. But I think it gives you unique insights on some of this big picture stuff that is happening in college football. I'm very excited that we're getting close to the season and we can put some of this like litigation on the back burner, the eligibility stuff on the back burner, maybe, a bill in Congress or two on the back burner. But having talked to so many of these coaches, what is the overall sentiment that you come away with in college football? About, I mean, there are some that are benefiting from the system right now greatly. The Oregons and Ohio States and Texas of the world have been able to strengthen their position. Teams like Texas Tech have experienced upward mobility. The same is true for BYU. Speaking from the Utah perspective, there's a lot of worry and hand-wringing, and they've done this private equity deal to try to close a gap that they didn't really find another way to close. So in college football, what is the overall sentiment from the coach's perspective on the changes that may be coming or need to be coming?
Yeah, that's a great question, Sean. I'm going to answer that in a couple different areas. First of all, let's talk about the group of 6 coaches out there. And basically when I'm going over a roster with the group of 6 coaches, and this year I talked to 133 of the 138 coaches, but going over the roster with the group of 6 coaches, they'll get excited about a player. They'll say, wow, this guy's big, strong, blah, 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 blah. We won't have him next year. They know that he's going to get bought by a Power 4 team. So that's pretty much the mindset of the group of 6. We're going to get a better level of recruit coming in because now the Power 4 teams aren't recruiting strictly freshmen. They're bringing in transfers that has these guys trickling down. But they know once they develop him into an all-conference player, they're going to get bought. Now, overall coaches, first of all, I think everybody is rooting for this bill to go through so that college football can actually have some rules. The 5-year rule is fantastic. And the most interesting thing I took out of this spring, Sean, was that every coach that I would talk to, they'd say, hey, Phil, how you doing? I'm like expecting me to say, oh, I'm doing great, Coach. How about yourself? I would say, Coach, I am doing marvelous. There is no second transfer portal window. I don't have to rewrite 138 teams all in the month of May. It's fantastic. It's like the old times. And you know what almost every single coach told me to a coach? They said, Phil, we were more of a team this spring. We knew that the guys we were taking in the spring, that's our team. We weren't going to replenish them over after second spring portal window. Guys weren't going to leave. We could coach them harder. We could list the guy third string knowing he's not going to leave. The guys we took in the spring are the guys we're taking into the fall. The players could become buddies with each other knowing the other guy wasn't going to leave after spring. So I think we're going to have a better brand of football this year because there was no second spring portal window. And overall, I think college is headed in the right direction if this bill passes, and we actually get some rules and some teeth that the NCAA can use.
It's been fun watching the narrative, the little rivalry between the Big Ten and the SEC, who's the most dominant conference truly now. And, we're outsiders looking in at that power play. Do you think the Big Ten has a great chance of winning another national championship? Is this the year that the SEC once again takes the top position, or is there a Notre Dame or an ACC or a Big 12 team that ends up with the bragging rights at the end of the year?
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing about college football. As we saw with Miami last year, they almost won it. So whoever makes the playoff has got a great shot. And I think that both the SEC and the Big Ten have got legitimate title contenders. I mean, Georgia, Texas, loaded. Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon, loaded. So both conferences have a great shot. But I went with neither. I went with Notre Dame. So, when I look at Notre Dame this year, Sean, I see a team that had a great defense last year. They held opponents to 95 yards per game below their average. They got 9 starters back on D. They have my number 5 rated defensive line, number 1 linebackers, number 1 DBs in the country, dominant. Now, normally that'd be enough for me to pick a team number 1. I'm a defensive guy, but I'm also on the Joe Moore Award Committee, and which means I value offensive line play. It's one of the 21 award committees I'm on, and I rate Notre Dame's offensive line, guess this, number 1 in the country. They've got 4 NFL caliber guys back. So now you got the offensive line, you got the defense, and oh, by the way, they've got a quarterback in C.J. Carr, who was a redshirt freshman last year. Now he's a veteran. He had a 20-4 ratio last year. He'll be even improved. I think he's the Heisman front runner right now. And then factor in the schedule. Their toughest two games are at BYU, and that one's not going to be easy. That's probably a real tough one. And then Miami of Florida at home. Both of those very tough, but I've got the Irish favored in all 12 games. And if they can overcome that bye week obstacle and stay healthy, and they should be able to, they should be able to play a lot of backups, get them experience during the year. I think the Irish can win it all this season.
Very last thing for you before we let you go, Phil. I will be honest, I had hoped for a fairy tale ending of the Kyle Whittingham era at the University of Utah. I wanted him to ride off into the sunset, never having been a head coach anywhere else. I wanted us to build the statue, 3 years after his retirement. And this whole thing complicates it, even though I think his legacy is secure at Utah. But I won't feel like any of it was worth it if he doesn't do great things at Michigan. So what is Michigan football going to be under Kyle Whittingham?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing Utah was, and the same thing Michigan's been, which is strong offensive line, and they've got that this year. Strong defensive line, and they've got that this year, especially if John Henry Daly is healthy. Strong defense overall. They've got Jair Hill, Smith Snowden at cornerback. They've got Rod Moore at free safety. You look at the quarterback position. Bryce Underwood last year was a true freshman. He's an incredible athlete, and now he's got that experience under his belt. There are a couple question marks on the team. I talked to Coach Whittingham. He's like, if we had a second portal window, might have addressed a couple of things. But overall, this is a loaded team. And watch these running backs. Savion Hitter and Jordan Marshall, one of the best running back combos out there. Now, at the end of the year, they have to play Indiana at home. They play at Oregon and at Ohio State. Those are the three games they'll be an underdog. But I'm sort of circling that October 24th game. It should be pretty interesting. I think Kyle Whittingham's going to end up doing a great job at Michigan. I did ask him. I said, Coach, we've been talking for years and years. We're going to talk for another 10, 15 years? And he said, no, not that long, Phil, but I'm going to be here till we get something done. And I think it's a perfect fit, perfect marriage for Michigan.
Well, we're all going to be watching it, either hate watching it or love watching it or just watching it out of pure curiosity. But more importantly, this Utah football season kicks off in less than 30 days. Phil Steele and the Preview Magazine, the work is done. We appreciate you giving us some time today. I know it's a busy time of year as everyone wants to pick your brain. Thank you for joining me on the show, Phil.
Hey, Sean, just a reminder, though, 376 pages in that magazine, only available Barnes & Noble in Utah. So if you're in Utah, don't drive around looking for it. Barnes & Noble, or you can go to philsteele.com. But, Sean, always good talking Utah football with you, my friend.
Thanks very much. That is Phil Steele. Go to Barnes & Noble, grab the hardcover. There's nothing better than flipping through that magazine. Find your Utah stuff. Find your BYU stuff. Read up on that Arizona State roster. Go through everything in this Big 12 world. Look at what Arkansas's got, because he does it. He compiles it. It's the encyclopedia of college football. Big thanks to Phil Steele for joining us here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Lots left to get to. We're just getting started. It's a Wednesday. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. All right, we're going to dip our toes in the water of the Utah football over-unders. This one's for the offense. Big question on the offensive line, right? Highest rated recruit in program history is an offensive lineman in a year where you need 5 new starters on the offensive line. You brought in Cedric Jefferson in the transfer portal. He was excellent at Montana State. Ike Garcia healthy, hopefully, for the first time. Al Harrison, Zaraway Williams. You've got guys. I'm setting the over-under for games started by Kelvin Obot at 5.5 games started. I think it's reasonable to expect that it might take him some time to integrate himself, to grow into the position a little bit more. After all, he just joined Utah for spring football as an early enrollee. He is a true freshman. Now, he's not built like a lot of true freshmen, but since the offensive line is the number one question about this Utah football team, and the presumed answer or partial answer to that question comes in the form of a highly rated recruit who happens to be the star pupil of your new offensive line coach as well. How many games will Kelvin Obot start for the University of Utah? At Real OC Sports, 877-353-0700. The over-under I'm setting is at 5.5 games. Does he start half the season or less than half the season, basically? Let me know on the Twitter poll, or you can text it to 877-353-0700. The weather yesterday was not actually that bad, right? So you maybe got fooled into thinking, all right, fall's going to come early. Maybe I don't have to worry about the energy efficiency of my home. No, you still do, all right? Advanced Window Products is going to make your home more energy efficient, and that is going to be money back in your pocket because your power bill, your gas bill during the winter goes down. Now, you're going to have to pay for the windows, but they've got you covered there as well. $2,500 off when you purchase 10 windows or more, and you can actually combine that with a financing offer they have going on right now, 60 months interest-free with the purchase of 10 windows. And if you need fewer than 10, they're going to prorate these discounts for you. If you need French doors, if you need sliding doors, if you need a pet door, they're also helping out finding vinyl siding or that composite board siding that is so popular with everyone now. Advanced Window Products, a company that you can trust with a lifetime warranty behind their products, which are manufactured right here in Salt Lake City. They are sold by a local sales crew. They are installed by a local installation crew. The measurements are done by people who live and work exclusively here in Salt Lake City. Go to advancedwindows.com, 801-850-9100. Tell them OC sent you. Take advantage of the 60 months interest-free financing. Take advantage of the discount of $2,500 and get on the schedule now. It'll take 6 to 8 weeks before your brand new windows are actually in because they have to make them, they have to install them. Nate Orchard, Jake Weber and Company, take care of our listeners. They will take care of you. Beautify your home, make it more energy efficient, increase the resale value all in one fell swoop. 801-850-9100 or advancedwindows.com. All right, Utah football practice is underway. Media availability for today is happening right now. Sammy Mora is going to join us in the 1 o'clock hour after media availability is done. Defensive players were available yesterday. Monday, they had offensive players. And actually, let's hear from QB1. Devin Dampier was questioned after practice because, of course, he's QB1. Here's Dev for Monday.
How you feeling day one? Take us through.
Man, I feel great, honestly. I thought our team, we've been working hard without the coaches here a lot, building culture without them. So, for finally the coaches to be back and, see how far we've come together as a team, first practice, I thought it went well.
How comfortable are you with Coach McGivens' schemes and the offense as a team now?
Yeah, I'm very comfortable. Mac G, he tells me all the time, he wants to dedicate this offense to the way he feels I do best. And for us to just keep having conversations, we have days where we can get better. We have days where, we take the good out of the practice and, we just keep elevating the offense from there. So I'm happy that he respects my talents and what I can do so we can thrive as an offense.
How was the offseason like for the offensive line?
Man, a very time for them to mentally get stronger and just more explosive. There's a lot of days Coach Saunders makes our workouts very orientated to the position, and you can tell those offensive linemen, a lot of them lost about 5-10 pounds of fat, and then also gained like 10-15 pounds of muscle. So for them to have that transformation just in the summer, man, now they get to showcase it out here and be at their best.
Where do you feel like you're at just in terms of some of the improvements you made this offseason, and how are you excited to implement them here in fall?
Yeah, I think a lot of this offseason was me getting together with the receivers. We brought in so many new guys, so they all have their own little spin to their own routes and how they see things on the field. So to get on the same page, that was something that was brought to my attention I needed to do during the offseason. So I thought we came out here and, we're able to showcase that.
How often did you guys get together, just with you and the receivers?
Yeah, there would be days where we had a harder workout, so I'd let them be stationary, just more tracking, more things like that. And the days we did less running, we got more into routes, we got more into putting out coverages in our head. The other receivers would be out there being defenders, and, we would just try to implement the field how it would look on the field. So yeah, that's kind of how we went about it.
How much of the offseason are you watching film with you and Bird and the coaches?
Yeah, off-season, it's a little bit. It'll ramp up when, we get closer to the weeks of looking at our opponents. I feel like we watched a lot of film during spring. We watch it out by ourselves. We watch it with the coach when he comes in. So there's a lot that we've already learned from the spring. So summer's just a time to literally work on the body. It's time to you have that time set aside from film to get your body right. So this is when film digs into that process.
How much do you have to just kind of mentally reset in terms of not worrying about the football, just kind of giving yourself a break so that this doesn't become a chore in some respects? Does that make sense?
I love football. At the end of the day, everyone out here, we love football. We all signed up for this. I've never heard of an easy fall camp, so, we kind of know what to expect when we're here. And, we just go about it where you love each other. We're such a bonded team that, like, being out here is fun. It's not taxing. It doesn't feel like we're being forced to be dragged out here. Everyone in this building knows that we got big plans ahead. We just talked about it yesterday, how we want to win a Big 12 championship. So just with that thought process, we got to do it every day.
What's it like sharing the quarterback room with Bird and having somebody like him in the offense?
Man, Bird is great, honestly. I think the biggest thing I take away, obviously we're best friends outside of this, but especially during football, he's a very talented player. So, I go out there, I do 4 plays, I think I did good, then Bird goes out there, he throws a touchdown. I'm like, okay, now I'm going to answer back. And then, we just keep elevating each other where, eventually when he takes over, he's going to be that guy. And, he's also pushing me to be the guy right now. So it's very mutual always around.
How are you feeling about this receiver room going into fall?
Man, very exciting. If you can tell, I think every receiver probably caught the ball today just because of we have so many weapons, you know what I mean? We have so many people that can get open. We can put them in different places. So, it shows on the field that so many receivers caught the ball today, so many different ones. So, shout out on their part.
Coach McGibbon talked about offensive balance being about spreading the ball around 2 players rather than just 50% pass, 50% run. How have you sort of embraced that mindset of getting everybody involved as best you can?
Yeah, I think that's the best way for an offense to roll. Be what the defense is giving us. If the defense wants us to pass the ball more, we'll do that. If the defense wants us to run the ball, we'll do that. And that's just kind of where our offense comes from. We take advantage of what the defense gives us. And, McGibbon trusts me so much with the offense. He gives me the ability to, go get into a different play, get into things that we run very well. So just to have that aspect, it makes me very confident going into any game that we have the game plan to, do what it takes to win.
Speaking of confidence, do you walk a little bit different now that you've been around here? You're kind of feeling good in the red. I mean, just take me through being under center as QB1.
Yeah, I think, one coming back to Utah after, everything that went on, and just being so welcoming from one, my coaches meeting me in the airport. Just starting from there, that builds a lot of respect to me and a lot of loyalty. So, yeah, I do see my teammates looking at me when things get bad and also when things are well. So I prefer to stay at the top of my levels, make sure I'm the same guy, very consistent every single time, and that's just how I embrace my role.
Thanks, Devin.
Devin Dampier, that's from Monday's post-practice media availability, and we are trying to lock down exactly when Devin is going to join us weekly throughout the season. He will be joining us weekly throughout the season. It's a big ask to say, hey, can you do it during fall camp, because the schedule is tight, and by design, they really flood every minute, every hour with football. I mean, it is a full-time job right now for Dev and company. Great to hear him. Great to hear the positivity, the off-season work. Here's something that, I think we have to adjust our expectations based on in college football now. These adages that we lean on and we have leaned on for years will be like, oh, yeah, your first or second year as a starter, they're very different. Your second year after, especially being a freshman and getting playing time, then your sophomore year, you're going to have this big jump forward. Now that transfers are ubiquitous in college football, I think we need to take an extra look at your second year in a new place. Devin Dampier is a multi-year starter, right? He's going into his third year as a full-time starter. His fourth year as a starter. Devin Dampier is a second-year starter at the University of Utah. The comfort, that last question kind of alluded to this, the comfort of knowing that you're in the right spot, that you could have gone somewhere else and you decided to stay. You sort of reinvested yourself emotionally and probably literally with your time and things like that. The team reinvested in you emotionally, spiritually, physically, financially. That second year back, I'm really curious to see how it's reflected in Devin Dampier. And obviously there's the health equation, or the health quotient to this equation as well, because knock on wood, he won't have the same difficulties staying healthy this year as he did last year. He's not the guy that offered excuses. He's the guy that just went out there and played and did his thing. And I think we can all appreciate him for that. And again, it was an incredible football season. It fell short of your expectations, my expectations, but most importantly, fell short of Devin Dampier's expectations. All right, yesterday they had defensive player availability. And a guy that really kind of burst onto the Utah football scene last year, Jackson Benny, the former walk-on, whose brother is on the team again after leaving, going to Weber State, now coming back. Jackson Benny talked with the media. There's also sound available from Ethan Day, Jonnu Hall, Lucas Samsula. Our camp coverage is brought to you by CenXL, JBR, Beer Bar, Citron Cooperman, and your Utah Toyota dealers. But, James, if you don't mind, let's cue up Jackson Benny from post-practice yesterday.
Jackson, how are we feeling? You're a vet now.
Man,
you're doing a lot here. How
You're
are you
a
feeling?
dad now.
You're a dad.
I am a dad. Yeah. No, I am Poppy now. I am officially a father. No, it's crazy. It really does feel like yesterday it was my first fall camp. I think every year goes by a little quicker. This is definitely here a lot sooner than it was before, getting used to things. But it's great. I love it. It's fun to be one of the older guys. So.
Morgan called out the competition in the safety room yesterday. Just what are you seeing from, the room?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of guys that can play. It's definitely not a shoo-in. It's a lot of good competition. Everybody owns their 20 square feet. Everybody brings a little bit different to the table. But, yeah, we got a really good room.
How much more comfortable do you feel operating as a safety defensive back out there?
Yeah, I'd say, I don't know, almost as if it was like January 1st this year. Just, I don't know, a switch in my mind or something. I just have felt a little bit more comfortable out there. I feel like I made a few mental errors today, which is, never the best. But, for the most part, I feel a lot more comfortable not thinking about too much anymore and trying to develop my game where I'm not thinking about the defense, and now I'm trying to, more focus on the offense, what they're doing. So.
I was going to say, to that point, you talked about, not being a finished product yet. How have you kind of taken this last year and watching the tape and doing all that to help you to move forward into this year?
Yeah, there's a few things that I wanted to work on. My size, wanted to get a little bigger. Been trying to focus on my weight, reading offenses, understanding route concepts a little bit better. Just certain things like that that I still need a lot of work on, but those things are, I'd say, the biggest things I've been focusing on this offseason.
How different has a Morgan Scalley fall camp been? I mean, you said in the spring you could tell he wants to die for the players. I think that's what you said.
Yeah, he will.
But what does the first couple of days of fall camp with him as head coach look like?
No, it's been great. Yeah, he definitely cares about our bodies and our physical well-being, and he understands that it's tough out here. It's physically and mentally taxing, but he definitely is doing the best for the players. He's being smart, but his thing is, hey, we're doing this. We might not have a 24-period practice. It's just 15 periods today, but you have to give me 100% everything you got. And so that's kind of our thing. If whatever we're doing, he's going to help us out if we do our part. So.
Who are some of the other top names in that safety room that are standing out so far?
Yeah, Rabbit, Richie, Tillman, and we got a few awesome younger classmen. Josh Sovereign had 2 picks today. Let's see, Manny. We have a lot of. It's pretty deep. So I love what we have now, and I'm really excited to see in the future how those safeties develop because they got a lot of talent.
How different is a Colton Swan-led defense so far?
I would say not much different. Same defense as it's been for a long time. They add their own little twists on it, but for the most part, it's been the same. That's it.
You said you wanted to get bigger this offseason. How was it under Saunders and just this new weight strength and conditioning program?
Yeah, it's been great. Saunders he's awesome. I love him. He's a great dude. I'd say with Saunders, the difference, he is definitely time under tension with the reps, slow down, pause, quick up, and not as much weight on the bar, but we've been able to get a lot stronger that way, and just different muscle fibers and things that he focuses on that I've loved a lot.
Last year you kind of broke onto the scene due to a lot of injuries, but this year it seems like you're kind of in a leadership role and you're one of the top guys in the room. Just how different has that been for you compared to what it was last year?
I would say not different at all, really. I mean, every single day I'm trying to compete. It hasn't changed since I got here as a walk-on till now, and I always have to remember that. I can never get complacent. And so, it's just compete every day. I need to watch hours of film. How can I be better? What's the technique that I need to use? Anybody can help me, from the guys that have been here a while to some newcomers. I ask them, how, hey, I like that. How do you do that? So I'm try to be a sponge as much as I can. I want to be the best that I can. I'd say it's not much different.
Big thanks to our guy Porter Larson gathering sound for us at media availabilities when we are not able to because, of course, we are here live on air. That was Jackson Benny, who was one of the breakout stars of Utah football season last year, and you heard him talking about he's just going to be a defensive player this year, so he's worried about stopping an offense. He doesn't have to worry about how he fits into a scheme against an opposing defense. I think that's going to help him. Another thing you heard from him, and you heard it from offensive linemen on Monday's media availability, and I think it's going to be a theme, and I don't want to lead any witnesses, but let's just observe and report. Think about when you're listening to these conversations from the players, how often the strength and conditioning program from the offseason is mentioned. Morgan Scalley took a massive risk in replacing a guy who had been there as part of the program for 2.5 decades. Greg Argust was really, really good at his job, was going to get an opportunity to kind of take the reins from Doug Elisaya for the very first time, and he was kept on an incredibly short leash, and ultimately Steve Saunders was elevated, and that was a risk. There are a lot of people, there were a lot of alumni especially, who have close relationships with Argust who were really upset by this. The group chats were blowing up. It was bad news for a lot of folks. And guys like, Eric Weddle, who obviously had a relationship with Steve Saunders from his days with the Baltimore Ravens, were like, don't pay attention to the headlines associated with that guy's name. He is the best I have ever worked with in this strength and conditioning thing. He helped me extend my career. And look, that weight, or those words had a lot of weight with Morgan Scalley. But it was still a big risk. And we have now heard multiple players in really only 2 days of opportunity talk about how they really like the new program. They really like Steve Saunders. And more importantly, they like the way their bodies have responded to that program. They like the way their bodies feel coming out of that program. I don't bring this up to say, oh, see, I told you so, because I have no idea. I love Greg Argust, and I was like, man, I really don't like the way that whole thing went down. But you have to put trust in your new head coach, and he has to live and die by his own sword. He has to do things his way. And players and their opinion on the matter, their response to the matter, it's obviously far more important than anything that we can say about it or that we can think about it or that even prominent alumni can think about it, right? The Sugar Bowl group chat doesn't really have a lot of bearing on what's going on with Utah football right now. You want those guys to feel informed, included, part of the history, part of the legacy, part of the program. You don't want them to be bothered. You want them to feel like there's familiar faces when you go back up to the facility. We are so spoiled in that regard because it's been 20-plus years. And you can walk up there if you were ever a player in this program. If you were ever a player in this program, you can still go up there and there's somebody that you know who has a connection, who maybe was on your recruiting trip, who recruited you, who was a coach on the staff while you were there, who was in the equipment room, who was in the strength and conditioning room. So that massive risk, at least from a player response perspective, seems to be paying off right now for Morgan Scalley and for this Utah football team. The offensive line in particular, some of those guys acknowledged, hey, we needed to get stronger, we needed to get leaner, and the results in that regard are measurable. Those guys can go and they have access to the DEXA body scans and the caliper tests and the whatever else, and those things will tell you you have lower body fat percentage, you have higher muscle mass, and at least intuitively think that means you're going to be a better football player this year. So I'm going to be paying close attention to that. And we are going to effort getting Steve Saunders on the program sooner than later. I think I actually made my request for that with our guy Keeler McJunkin while he was on vacation. But, I want to talk with Steve Saunders. You heard Jackson Benny mention time under tension rather than just rushing through your reps. He wants it to be lower weight, lower and slower. This ain't barbecue, though, so I want Steve Saunders to explain for me why that makes sense, why that works, how that makes you a better football player. Because he's got to know it, and he's got to be able to convey that to the players for them to be reacting the way that they are reacting.
Hold on, did I say that was you that said it's not barbecue? That was great little pun you did there.
Well,
low and slow.
Low
Let's
and
go.
slow, you know what I mean? 877-353-0700. Always love to hear from you on the show. The Jackson Benny sound, the Devin Dampier sound, the Ethan Day sound, Jonnu Hall sound, Lucas Samsula sound, all available at ESPN700sports.com. Check it out on the ESPN 700 app. Beer Bar, Citron Cooperman, Utah Toyota Dealers, CenXL JBR, giving you full coverage of Camp Scally right here on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. The Daily Dump is coming next. You will not believe what BYU is doing to their Muss equivalent, The Rock, that I make fun of all the time. The Rock has some new rules, and they're not real happy about it in Provo. We'll talk about it during the Daily Dump on the Sean O'Connell Show, Utah's #1 sports talk. Are any of you out there a member of the Rock, the Roar of the Cougar, the ROC, the BYU equivalent of the Muss? I always make fun of the Rock because I don't think you have to have an acronym-style name for your student section. I think you could just be called the BYU student section. I don't think you had to do that as like a branding thing, especially when it's clearly just a ripoff of everyone else that's doing it. Like, you added that pretty late in the cycle, so to speak. The Rock was not the Rock until the Muss had been firmly established for many, many years.
Yeah, it was. I feel like it's been less than 5 or 10 years that they've had a nickname for the student section, right?
That's kind of where I come out on it. I don't remember in my time, it wasn't called the Rock, definitively.
When it wasn't.
The Muss was just becoming the Muss in those days.
But that's been now 20-something years.
Yes.
So that's now long established. I do think it's clever though for if you are gonna do a late nickname for your student section, the Rock, the Roar of the Cougar. It's a clever name.
Let me see if I can plug something in here. Best student section names.
There's got to be some good ones in the SEC.
Football. Wow. Look at this. The AI overview says
we don't like
top
you,
college
but okay.
football student sections include the Muss, the Block O, and the famed unnamed student body of the Penn State Whiteout. So I don't think that.
So there's not many.
Again, there's not.
The Block O would be Oregon. Right?
The Texas A&M Corps of Cadets.
Yeah.
Right. But
yeah,
they don't name them all the time.
It's this school student section,
and so you kind of ripped it off. Like, there's got Fresno State calls theirs the Red Zone. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Syracuse calls themselves the Curse.
The Curse.
I like the Cuse Curse. That's kind of cool. All right.
Cuse Curse. We're going to have to ask JP Chunga about that one.
Wait a second. That's from Syracuse High School in Utah.
Oh, shout out to my lovely wife, her alma mater
Wait,
there.
Is this a
Hunter
thing?
Dimmick's alma mater as well.
I stumbled upon this. The top 20 the top 40 student sections,
high school or college,
in high schools in Utah.
Oh wow. The Cuse Curse. I'm going to have to go home and ask about that.
I need someone to text in 877-353-0700. Have we named every student section at every high school? The Lone Peak Unknighted. The Corner Canyon Stable. The Caveman Crazies of American Fork.
All right.
The Olympus Ozone. The Timpview T-Birds, that makes sense. The Dixie Bomb Squad. Do you remember the Dixie Bomb Squad?
Yeah, we were the Bomb Squad. We would chant "Bomb Your Nation" to Snow Canyon because their chant was "Warrior Nation," so we'd bomb your nation.
Woods Cross Mafia. The Bingham Pit. That one's real. I know that one.
Do they have a Jordan High School? Do they have a Beat Diggers something?
Yeah, what would we be? The Beat Field?
The Field.
The Grantsville Red Riot.
Actually, you guys would be the Schrute Farms, right?
That would be pretty cool, actually. The Westlake Storm Surge. I didn't know this. The Davis Mob.
We got to, next time we get Weddle on the show, we watch out for the Storm Surge.
Yeah, watch
in
out.
September, okay?
The Bear River Den. They called themselves the Den. Brighton, according to this list, doesn't have a name, but I remember they had a Welcome to the Jungle thing painted on the student section.
So, really? So is the
Bengals.
Is the field and the court the jungle then?
I guess.
And I guess.
Anyway.
I see the disdain on your face as we talk about the hated Brighton Bengals.
I was not a big fan of the Brighton Bengals. Never beat them, ever.
Never. Wow.
Yeah, it's bad. Okay, it was bad. Anyway.
I'm really glad my alma mater, the Flyers student section, the Bomb Squad made it onto the list.
Bomb Squad made it onto the list.
Let's go.
Wow, what a strange rabbit hole that took me down.
Yeah.
But back to BYU, the Rock, the Roar of the Cougar. Again, you don't have to do that. All right.
Could just be BYU student section.
The
But
Rock-
I do think it's clever, though.
Okay, the Rock Pass is $250. But now there's a new. So the way that it has always worked for the Rock, and I think it's the exact same with the Muss. I haven't had a Muss Pass ever, unfortunately. I think it's first come, first serve. You go and you claim your tickets you have your Muss Pass, and you wait in line, or you get in the queue online on the app, and you say, I want tickets to, the Idaho game. I want tickets to the Arkansas game. I want tickets to the BYU game. And as far as I know, it's always been first come, first serve. Well, what BYU is doing now is you're basically going to be on a point system, and they're incentivizing people to attend Olympic sports so that they can get better access to football and basketball games.
So they specifically say the window to request tickets are every Monday before a home game. That's still the same, but it does not. You being the first to request the tickets is of no consequence.
Tuesdays at noon before home
Tuesdays,
games.
excuse
I don't
me.
want the one BYU fan who listens to us to be like, "Oh, James told me
He
it was
told me
Monday."
Mondays. Tuesdays. My
Tuesdays
bad.
at noon
Reading
before home
comprehension, a struggle for me sometimes.
You have 24 hours to request a ticket, but there's no longer a benefit to being first to request a ticket in the 24-hour window. Ticket allocation will now be determined based on a system influenced by attendance at BYU's Olympic team sporting events. That is BYU women's soccer, women's volleyball, men's volleyball, gymnastics, women's basketball, baseball, and softball games. The more Olympic events a student attends, the better position they are to earn stadium entry in an earlier group. You're not required to attend an Olympic sport to get a ticket for football or men's basketball. Attendance simply boosts the chances to get early entry into your football game. So,
and in men's basketball too, they make mention that because they never have any trouble with attendance, especially lately in men's basketball. So they're trying to boost all the other sports, basically.
Okay, so if you're anything like me and you're a student at BYU, which I guess you're not much like me if you're a student at BYU, an undergrad student at BYU, you're going, all right, well, yeah, fine. I'll claim a ticket to a women's volleyball game so that I can get a better men's basketball or a better football ticket. But here's what they do. They now want you to scan in to BYU Olympic sports, and Big Brother is watching. He wants you to scan out as well. They're taking attendance. They're taking attendance at games.
And you will get football and men's basketball attendance points.
If you go to a women's volleyball game, you scan your ticket in, and then you don't scan out, you don't get credit for it. Because you can, of course, just fake like you went to the game. If you go and you spend 5 minutes at the game and then you leave, you're penalized for that. They want you spending the whole time there. So this, you know what? You know who this rewards more than anyone, James? And this is my frustration with it. You know who gets the best benefit here? The kids who are there on mom and dad's dime, who don't have to have a job, who don't have to provide anything for their own college education, and can just do the student experience thing. Oh, cool. I have no obligations. I don't even have to take class that seriously. I'm going to go to every sporting event. Those are the people who benefit most from this. If you have a job and you can't attend as many Olympic events as your fellow students can, you're now being penalized. You don't get as good of tickets. The spoiled kids get the greatest benefit from this. Well, my parents gave me a car, and they pay for my apartment, and they're paying my tuition. I'm here on a scholarship for my violin aficionado status. I'm a phenom here. I'm already at the front of the line in everything, and now I'm at the front of the line for BYU football and basketball games. How did nobody in the room raise their hand and say, doesn't this penalize the many students that we have that are like hardcore working stiffs that are just trying to better their lives through a BYU education? Oh, and by the way, aren't a lot of them married, and don't a lot of them have kids?
Yeah. that's certainly a part of this. Certainly a part of the last thing you said there was certainly a part of the backlash online that I saw here. People like, I've got a family and I'm going to school. I can't attend that many of these Olympic sports games, and I'm gonna risk not having football tickets or having way worse football tickets because of it. And obviously football is a lot easier to attend because there's only 6 or 7 home games and it's always on a Saturday, with a couple of exceptions there, but only one game a week there. I will say this. I applaud them for trying to do something to incentivize the students attending more than just a couple of the sports, though, because I applaud them for trying to do it. This is probably not the way to do it, but I think it was a good idea.
You know what you do? Here's what you do. You give people a discount on their Rock Pass the next year, or you refund them if they attend a bunch of...
Based on their attendance. Okay.
A bunch of women's sports and baseball and things like that. You say you buy your $250 Rock Pass up front, and if you attend a certain amount of baseball games, soccer games, volleyball games, you know what? Then whatever percentage of the total Olympic sports games that you attend,
you get this much off.
You get that percentage of your total cost on the Rock Pass back. In fact, if you go to 100% of all the Olympic sports, that means you get the whole $250 back.
You get it's a free pass for you. That's the way to do it. Absolutely.
That's the way to do it. You're welcome, BYU. It just solved your problem.
Do you feel like Utah and the Musts should institute something like this? The only thing, and this is going to sound like throwing tons of shade, but it's unfortunately true. They're not gonna be able to be like BYU and be like football and men's basketball. No, men's basketball is going to have to be included in the Olympic sports at Utah because that's been a tough thing for attendance for the Musts there over the years, and it's because they haven't been winning. That's true.
And gymnastics doesn't get included.
Yeah, so
because gymnastics is a hard ticket.
Always full.
Robust attendance for gymnastics. So yeah.
So football and gymnastics are the sports that, hey, like let's try to attend more than just Red Rocks events, okay? And men's basketball and the rest of the sports are the ones that lumped in with the Olympic sports.
I actually think it's a great idea to try to incentivize your student fan base to attend more games. I don't like the idea that the kids with the most free time are the ones who get the greatest benefit here.
Because, yeah, I didn't even think about that. It is those guys who don't have to take, maybe guys and girls who don't have to take school as seriously, maybe.
And look, hopefully
maybe don't have jobs.
Hopefully everyone's taking school seriously. You can fit your study schedule in usually around a game or two.
Sure.
But really who this penalizes is students with jobs.
Yeah.
You know how messed up that is? You're penalizing people who have to work for a living? Knock it off. Not everybody. Some of us were fortunate enough. I was very, very lucky where my parents were willing to pay for my schooling itself. What I couldn't get filled with scholarship, they were willing to pay to fill that gap. I am so grateful for that. I was so lucky to not have to take out student loans. My parents did expect me to pay for my life. I paid for my groceries. I paid for my rent. I had to pay for my car. I had to do that stuff.
Fun money had to be from you, yeah.
Because I chose to walk away from a scholarship to walk on at the University of Utah, they were like, all right, that's your choice. You're going to have to work. We are not going to fund you playing football. Football is something you feel is necessary in your life. It's not something we feel is necessary in your life. If you want to be a walk-on, have fun, go for it. Not on my dime. We will pay for your school. You have to get the right grades. You have to pay for your life. And so I did. And nobody, thankfully, was penalizing me by not letting me into basketball games because of it or giving me worse seats at basketball games because of it. I'm angry at you, BYU, for penalizing the very few people that are like the lower middle class or the lower class or the economically struggling student that somehow got into BYU and somehow found a way to pay for BYU, and now you're taking away some of their student experience, or you're diminishing some of their student experience. Not taking it away. I want to be fair. They're not taking it away. You don't have to go to Olympic sports events in order to get a football or basketball ticket, but your football or basketball ticket will be lesser than because you're not able to have the amount of free time as some of your peers.
And you're paying the same amount of money, $250. So,
Correct.
Yeah, good idea.
Wag of the finger to you.
Yeah, good idea. Just probably different. Should adjust the system a little bit. Hopefully they do. Is that the roar of Sean O'Connell? Is that the Ross?
It's
towards the Rock.
Well, we could just call it the Rock. The roar of OC.
Roar.
Is
Yeah,
Rock.
You're right. The Rock. My Rock.
I guess
coming at your Rock.
Roar of OC would be the Rook.
The Rook. The Rowalk.
Roar OC. I don't want the same name.
So,
I don't want an acronym name.
Did you see Greg's text on the text line?
I did see Greg's text. I'm actually excited about this. We got on a random tangent about what high school student sections in Utah are called, and this is from Greg on the text line. OC, I'm an ancient Jordan beat digger. Shout out to you, Gold.Pride. Love my fellow beat diggers. At the old Jordan on 9400 South, haunted, amazing, great building, loved it. Weird smell in the wrestling room, didn't love that. On 9400 South, the basketball court was known as the Snake Pit. Kind of cool.
All right, so
not necessarily directly related to beat diggers, but Snake Pit. You know what? I'm actually bothered that there are not more snake mascots.
Yeah, more rattlers even.
Rattlers, cobras, diamondbacks. What are we doing? We live in a desert state here.
Yeah. Especially down south where I'm from.
There's not one. Is there?
Not that I can think of right now.
877-353-0700. Is there a single snake mascot in the state of Utah?
We're talking about high schools. I'm sure there's elementary schools that have, but the high schools.
I bet there's not one in elementary school. Elementary schools, they're like, we're not naming our mascot after a snake. That's going to scare the kindergartners.
Okay. Yeah, you might be right about that.
877-353-0700. If you know a snake mascot. Wow, we've really gotten far afield here. That's what happens occasionally on the Sean O'Connell Show. Daily Dump is always brought to you by our friends at Valley Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. A reminder also from the advocates that now is the time of year you can be an advocate for kids going back to school. In partnership with the Road Home, they're helping out with this drive to help make sure that kids whose families are falling on hard times are getting back on their feet through the Road Home. They need back-to-school clothes. They need shoes. They need backpacks. We invite you to be a child's advocate. Donate now by visiting ESPN700sports.com, going to appletreeforkids.com, or just do it on Venmo, at Advocates Donations on Venmo. At Advocates Donations on Venmo. They're going to make sure your donation goes to help kids get back to school in style. These families are doing what they can to get back on their feet. Let's help the kids out who are going back to school with your kids, alongside your children, right? Let's get them clothes that fit, that are clean, reliable shoes, backpacks that aren't going to fall apart by the third week. Advocates Donations on Venmo, appletreeforkids.com, ESPN700sports.com. All right, this maybe could have fit in the Daily Dump, but we're gonna take some time. James dug this up from the Action Network. The dirtiest teams in college football over the last 6 years, they've been tracked. The dirtiest teams, and one of our in-state universities is top 5 dirtiest teams in all of college football. I'll tell you which one next. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Action Network has tracked for the last 6 seasons the dirtiest teams in college football, the most penalized teams in all the land. One local university is top 5 dirtiest teams in all of college football. Can you believe that? Who do you think it is? It certainly could not be the University of Utah. Not on Morgan Scalley's watch. Not on anyone's watch. Not letting that slide. Not happening.
Not under Kyle Whittingham. Nobody. Yeah.
Utah actually the 18th cleanest team in college football, according to Action Network.
Top 20 all clean. Let's go.
Unsurprisingly, BYU is also one of the cleanest teams, slightly higher on the clean index.
Couple of spots ahead.
Which is honestly kind of where they belong.
Yeah, clean on the inside and clean with the way they play. Absolutely.
Clean on the inside, clean on the outside.
Yeah. Ohio State also in the top 20 somewhere. So
nobody cares.
That.
Nobody cares about that. Nobody cares about Ohio State. Ohio State is irrelevant in college football. If only that were the case. No, the Utah State Aggies are the 5th dirtiest team in college football. UAB is number 1. Toledo is number 2. New Mexico, with 7.5 penalties a game for 65 yards, is 3rd. Pittsburgh is the 4th dirtiest team. And the Utah State Aggies, 7.17 penalties per game, 63 yards a game in penalty yardage. 2.25 penalty first downs a game, which means that you are extending drives at least twice a game for your opposition with penalties.
Sometimes 3 or more times a game. Yeah.
That's actually worse than UAB, who's the number 1 team. The number 1 ranking comes with how many penalty yards they give up per game. UAB gives up 70 yards a game in penalties.
So it's important to note here, a lot of these teams, not the same coach for these 6 seasons, not like, Kalani at BYU, Witt at Utah in this time period here. This was Trent Dilfer's UAB for a few years there, and I don't know who else. New Mexico, there's at least 1 year with Bronco in there, and then who knows the other head coaches in that time. Also, last year,
Bronco, are you the problem?
Yeah. Also, 1 year, one of the years in this range is last year at Utah State under Bronco Mendenhall. That's interesting.
So New Mexico and Utah State both on this list. Bronco, what's going on? Some Aggie text in. Did you know that you have the top 5, one of the top 5 dirtiest teams in all of college football? Actually, this is crazy. I'm scrolling down and I'm verifying to make sure, but the Utah State Aggies surrender more penalty first downs per game than all teams in the country except for Pittsburgh.
Really? Yeah, that's not good.
That is the devastating stat there. Yeah, penalty yardage sucks. Racking up, 6-7 penalties a game is excessive and unnecessary. It's really what kills you is when your drive is killed or another drive is extended because of a penalty. So if you're gifting 2+ first downs per game, which the Aggies are over the last 6 years, that is terrible. Sorry, Aggies. I mean to bring that up.
I do quibble a little bit with the Action Network's wording here because dirtiest, the connotation is that the kinds of penalties they're getting are outrageous. But what they're talking about is just penalties in general. Like it could just be like a bunch of false starts, I mean, it's not necessarily dirty.
Yeah, but then you would just be calling them the most undisciplined.
But that's the way you get clicks and attention is you come up with some word that makes you feel some kind of emotion with it, which of course hooked me to go look at this list. So it worked.
We don't like to generalize and stereotype in college football, but you can when it comes to the service academy. Army, the cleanest team. Air Force, the 2nd cleanest team. Navy, the 6th cleanest team.
Wow.
Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, and Northwestern are all up there.
Those
Is
good,
very
clean old Midwest teams there.
mean,
Midwest boys.
The Midwestern teams are really clean. You're not beating any allegations of your kind of like square, polite stereotypes. Let's see. Wisconsin is number 14. Indiana's number 15. BYU 16. Georgia 17. Utah 18. I think that there's got to be some correlation here between your geographical location and your cleanliness or dirtiness. But Utah State bucks that trend because they got a penalty problem up there in Logan.
Apparently, Bronco Mendenhall might have a penalty problem too with his teams. Two of his teams, New Mexico and Utah State, in this range, both top 5.
Hey, teams in the South, what's your problem? Utah State is 5. Okay, rounding out the top 10: Miami, North Carolina, Mississippi State, Tennessee, and then Texas San Antonio is number 10.
UAB's in the South as well, and they're the dirtiest team. Most penalized teams. So, yeah, the Southern
5 of the top 10 are Southern teams
having a problem with penalties.
All right. I don't like the cut of your jib. USC, we don't like you either. 11th dirtiest. UCLA,
Not
13th.
surprising.
Arizona State, 14th. Colorado, 18th. I'm noticing a trend here. Party schools, dirty.
A lot of Big 12 teams, too.
All right, those are your dirtiest teams. You want a nice, clean round of golf? Go to Stansbury Park Golf Course. $45 on weekdays, $50 on weekends, just off I-80. No traffic, so you're actually going to get there faster, even though you got to go west of those Ochre Mountains. You're going to get there faster than you can get to a lot of the other courses that are in the valley or up and down the Wasatch Front because, again, less traffic out there on I-80. Grab a clue. Grab some clubs, maybe a few extra balls because there's some really challenging holes out there, but head out to Stansbury Park Golf Course. Great rates, gorgeous greens, minutes away. StansburyPark.gov/golf course to book your round. That's StansburyPark.gov/golf course. Tell them OC sent you. Sammy Mora joins us next to talk about what else? Utah football camp underway, post-practice media availability, finishing up. DeLon Wright also joins us in 27 minutes. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Well, welcome back to the Sean O'Connell. Welcome to hour number 3. DeLon Wright joins us in 25-ish minutes. Sammy Mora joins us right now. What are we calling these Wednesdays, James Peterson? Ute Zone Wednesdays. Every Wednesday throughout the season, we're going to do our best to touch base with our friends at Ute Zone. Sammy Mora, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. OC, how are you?
Doing all right. Anything revelatory from post-practice media availability today?
I think the biggest thing for me is Jordan Gross said right now there's 10 guys he feels comfortable with on the offensive line. I know that the offensive line has been the biggest question mark amongst Utah fans this spring, summer, as we started fall camp. But it's encouraging to hear there's at least 10 guys that Gross feels comfortable with, 2 days into fall camp.
So, obviously, we've talked about this before, but that is, for most people, the biggest question about this Utah football team. Can you hit your stride with an offensive line that will feature 5 new starters? And I think, realistically, we're going to see some combination of different bodies. I love hearing Jordan Gross say there's 10 possibilities there. The most fascinating one for me, and probably for some people who've been following the recruiting picture, is Kelvin Obot. And where does he fit in? Does he fit in at all? So I put an over-under out there today of 5.5 games started by Kelvin Obot. Does he start half the season or less for the University of Utah? If you had to go with the information you've got now, your gut feeling, the eyeball test when you watch that monster walk it on and off the field, what would you say to the over-under of 5.5 games started for Kelvin Obot as a true freshman?
Well, it depends on what position are you talking about, OC.
Doesn't matter. And that's why I think it's a more intriguing question because, is he going to be your starting left tackle as a true freshman? I don't think so. Is he going to be a guy that you put at right or left guard and let him then grow into the tackle position? That seems like a decent plan for me. Jordan Gross and some other people have alluded to the same. Kevin McGivern came on this show and talked about him getting reps at guard. So, any position on the offensive line. I don't think we'll see him play center, but you can answer the question however you choose.
I'm going to say under, just because I think that Solatoa Moiai and Keith Olson are your 2 starting guards. And unless they, God forbid, get hurt, those 2 aren't being jumped on the 2 deep, in my opinion. I think tackle is a little bit more interesting. Just because there isn't as many bodies at tackle as we know there are for the interior of the line. Because obviously you have Cedric Jefferson, the Montana State transfer, who Jordan Gross called out today as someone who made big strides during the offseason, which is also very encouraging to hear. You have Zeraway Williams, you have Soren Shinofield, Ike Garcia's in that conversation as well. So I want to go under, but I don't think that's reason for Utah fans to panic. Because oddly enough, Utah might be in this exact same position again at this time next year, trying to figure out who their starting 5 are again. Because outside of, Solatoa, who should get an extra year back if my math is correct based on the new 5-for-5 rules, everybody on this, and Cedric will also be back. But you're going to need to replace Keith Olson. You're going to need to replace Zeraway Williams. You're going to need to replace Alex Harrison. So there's 3 spots up for grabs right there next season. But I'm going to go under, because I, 1, think everyone on this offensive line is going to stay healthy. I'm projecting right now. And 2, I just think that it's going to feed Kelvin to just go a little bit harder and work a little bit more because he knows that there are so many guys ahead of him.
That's interesting. Okay, I'm taking the over because I think that you don't bring in a 5-star guy, highest rated recruit in program history, and then not expect that you're going to play him in at least half of a season. And I know that it's supposed to be all merit-based, but we're playing with a salary cap now, and I think that there's going to be some of that factors in at some point for Kelvin Obot this year. But I want to hear from all of you out there. Over under 5.5 games started for Kelvin Obot on the offensive line this year. Sounds like an encouraging offensive line picture with that being a big question. You just alluded to the new 5-for-5 rule and eligibility. Any update, anything that we know about Nakari Rogers and the possibilities of him rejoining this team?
Someone actually asked Mark Atuaya about it today, and he said that it's something they're kind of, working through and seeing if they possibly can. And then I followed up and I said, if you do bring Nakari back, how does that affect LaMarcus Bell, who is another highly touted freshman that's coming in and stuff? Because with that 5-for-5, you can't redshirt LaMarcus now. Like, you have to start pumping reps into these younger guys earlier in their careers. And so I don't know. It's one of those things that's interesting because Morgan said earlier in the week that they have 1 to 2 scholarship spots or roster spots actually is the technical term that they can work with. And there's still some muddy waters on who can come back, like what happens if they're not in the portal. Like, I saw something earlier today that said that if a team adds a player who is not in the portal prior to like April or whatever, the head coach can get suspended up to 50% of the season. So then you have to worry about, okay, well, does that go towards Nakari? So it's one of those things where I'm just kind of in a wait and see basis. I'm not going to say for sure Utah's going to bring Knack back, but I'm also not going to shut it down completely.
Yeah, the fine print rules are interesting. I think the way that I understand it is if you want to come back, you either had to have had some foresight to put yourself in the portal before you kind of finished up, which I don't know why anyone would do that, or you have to come back to the same place you were already at because then the portal wouldn't come into play and that ghost transfer rule wouldn't come into play is the way that I read it and understood it. I'm not sure if that's accurate, but that's how I interpreted it.
It's so confusing right now with all of these lawsuits and injunctions and everything like that. I feel like I needed to get a law degree and not a journalism degree with how much I'm reading lawsuits and stuff right now in this current junction of college athletics.
Yeah, we'd probably all be better off covering sports now if we had better legal expertise. But here we are. So just a few days into camp and no media observation, right? I mean, they've stuck with that. You haven't been able to watch any practice yet?
Nope, we have not seen any practice.
Okay. So we're operating on the statements of players and coaches, and we all kind of came in with the same questions. We already discussed the offensive line thing. Anyone been given particular shout-outs about, maybe being a surprise so far or someone who's starting to separate themselves in any of these other rooms yet?
Chad Bumpus mentioned Tobias Merriweather this morning as somebody who, came out of the gates early in fall camp, especially because Tobias didn't practice in spring for Utah. So Tobias was called out by Bump this morning. Luke Wells called out Will Monty, who, again, wasn't available during the spring for Utah, as somebody else that he's gotten eyes on. It's one of those things where it's like you have an idea of who you think the guys that are going to contribute are on this roster, but I feel like every year, without fail, there's one guy that kind of, gets spoken about a lot and everyone starts buying the stock now. I think Cyrus Paulu is probably the best case and the best bet right now for who that could be this year. I mean, at this time last year, everyone was talking of Jackson Benny, and look how that turned out. So if Cyrus if we get to see Cyrus and he plays to the way that everyone's speaking that he's playing, I think the Utah linebacker room is in insanely good hands. But it's been, the usual names that we've heard, but Tobias and Will were the two that were brought up today that we haven't heard all fall.
You just mentioned Jackson Benny. We played the sound from yesterday of him post-practice, and, that safety room, I don't think the picture of, at least the rotation is as clear. Everyone is like, yeah, your safeties are good, but I'm not ready to declare anyone a starter yet necessarily because there's so much talent in that room. And I know speaking with Morgan last year when he still was coaching the safeties, he was really high on some of the young guys coming in, and obviously there's versatility with someone like a Jackson Benny to play nickel if you need him to. So what do you know about or what do you think about the safety rotation right now? Because it's a crowded room.
Well, Coach Derek Odom today said that, he does a lot of mixing and matching with the guys in his room because there is so many guys that are up for competition. Nate Ritchie, Jackson Benny, Nate Tillman. My brain is just Rabbit Evans. My brain is just blanking on everybody else. Manny Fuller. There's so many guys that are available to play in the safety room. And so it's a lot of mixing and matching. And I think that a big thing with guys is not to get complacent because with this depth in the safety room, if you fall half a step back, somebody's going to be there to overtake you by a step and a half. And so I think that that's really good and that's encouraging. And there's different guys who can do different things in the situation. If there's a guy who's a lot better in run support, he might be seeing a little bit more time than someone who's specifically better in coverage. And I think that's what's going to make Utah's defense, I think, even more hard to beat this year, just with across the board, the amount of talent and the amount of guys that can do different things, that's going to be hard for opposing offenses to scheme against, especially if the safety room takes a step forward in the tackling department, which, again, Odom spoke about, and how the guys in his room want to be better tacklers. They want to get better at that. They're willing to do it. So as a whole, I like where the safety room looks. I agree that I heading into fall, I did think it was going to be Jackson and Rabbit who are going to be your starters. But now it's kind of one of those things where it's like, could it be Jackson and Nate Ritchie? Could it be Nate Ritchie and Nate Tillman? Like, there's so many different mixing and matching that can happen, and it's going to be really fun to see how that continues to shape up as fall goes on.
Do you have any insight on the defensive line rotation? The trench play, right? The trench play is going to be so massively important because you've got all this unproven talent. And you and I have discussed this kind of every time you've come on, and we always appreciate your time. But we watch certain players kind of take a step forward and excel a little bit in spring. And now we have to operate on trust that we're getting the right information from coaches and other players and things like that. And I felt like I was always able in the past to get a good sense of who the guys on the D-line were going to be by watching the 5 minutes we got to watch of them. Now I don't know. And the coaches keep saying Carson Kalfusi. Who else?
I think Carson's the biggest name that we've heard consistently. That second spot is the one that's really interesting to me. Like Lucas Samsula, the Wyoming transfer, he looks so much bigger. Like standing next to him in the scrum yesterday, I was like, okay, yeah, this Steve Saunders strength and conditioning program looks to be paying off. He's someone that I think could be in there, especially because he wants to stop the run. That's his thing. He prides himself on that. Then you have Jai Moy, the San Jose State transfer, who, you know, people are knocking on him because he's 6'2", 290, but that kid has some motor. And when you hear offensive linemen repeatedly saying that he is the hardest guy to block on that defensive tackle room, that's something that, at least for me, sets off alarm bells in my head. Not like bad alarm bells, but like, oh, this could be something that could turn into some production in the fall type of alarm bells. Jamal Wallace, the Tennessee transfer, I've heard some good things about. Pupu Sepulona, I've heard some good things about that he's been, doing over the last couple of months and stuff. But I honestly think I don't want to say it's a good problem to have, but I like that the fact that we don't know who it's going to be, because I think, again, like we talked about with safeties, I think this defensive tackle room, there's so many guys who do so many different things that I think you can mix and match and you can play with this tackles room to do different things. Whether it be you put Carson and Lucas out there and you just have two guys who are 6'4" plus who are just there to stop the run, or you put, Jam and Jai out there who are a little bit more shiftier and a little bit quicker, who can get off blocks faster, who can get into the backfield. So that's one of those things, those battles that I'm also really interested to see how it develops as fall goes. Because if guys start separating themselves, then I think that that's a good thing for Utah. But if you head into this season with, 4, 5, 6 guys you feel comfortable with, I think that's also kind of encouraging. Because last year, I think that, at least looking back, I think there was probably maybe 1.5 guys that people felt comfortable with on that in that defensive tackle room. But it feels a lot different this year than it did last year.
Sammy Mora for a couple more minutes here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking Utah football camp. They are 3 days in now, plenty more to go. Obviously, the Idaho kickoff is less than a month away now, and you got to get from here to that kickoff as healthy as you possibly can. That's one of the reasons why a change was made in the strength and conditioning program. And we have heard you mention his name. We've heard several players in the early parts of camp coming out of the summer talking about how the Steve Saunders program has worked out very well for them personally, how their bodies feel different. Guys have taken off fat mass and added muscle mass because of this. How many people are mentioning this, Sammy? It seems like it's kind of like one of the main themes of the early conversations.
I mean, every single player in the scrums this week has been asked about it, and every single player had something good to say. I think the biggest one that stands out for me specifically was Alex Harrison. He mentioned that there were guys in this offensive line room who lost weight but gained 20 pounds of lean muscle, like in just a 2-month span. Alex himself said that this is like the best he's ever felt, and he's been around the block quite a few times for Utah. So you have him saying that. You have Lucas Samsula saying the same thing. Ethan Day told us after his scrum that he's up to 270 pounds and he looks the part. Like, and this is not just weight that guys are putting on, like that bad weight that people talk about, just like fat and stuff. Like, it is muscle. And from the eye test so far, a lot of guys look a lot different, and it's really encouraging. And the coaches today said that, yeah, there's been some bumps because guys, especially on the offense and defensive line, are learning how to move and do different things with the new weight on their body. And as much as I think Luther Ellis said, as much running and conditioning you do in the summer with new weight, it's different than when you're actually playing football with that new weight. So guys are still getting used to it and stuff, but everything that we've heard so far from these players has been highly, highly encouraging about Steve Saunders and what he's done in 2.5 months with these guys.
Your first, we're getting a lot of milestones, right? Morgan Scalley's first win as a head coach back in the bowl game, his first spring ball. You get a lot of firsts in this initial go. His first camp as the head coach. Any noticeable differences based on what you are able to glean?
I mean, Jackson Benny mentioned that they're not doing 23 period practices. They're doing shorter period practices, but Morgan wants 100% effort in every single one of those periods. That's not how things used to be with Kyle. It was longer practices, bloody Tuesdays, all of those things. But it seems like Morgan is turning more to, it's okay for it to be a little bit shorter, but I want 100% effort this entire time. And we'll see if that pays off. We'll see if that has to change as time goes on. But that's less reps, which I know people are like, well, less reps equals not good. It's like, no, if those reps that are taken are high quality reps, it's better than having quite a few low quality reps, in my opinion, at least, because the higher level competition these guys are playing with in practice is going to let the cream rise to the top. And you will have, your 11 starters on offense and your 11 starters on defense who know what it takes to play at this level. And so that's the big thing that stood out so far. Obviously, we are only 2 days in. The pads haven't been on. We don't know, like Morgan even said, we don't know what we have with the offensive line and defensive line fully yet because, they play a lot different in pads versus when they're just in, their shells and stuff. So as we go on, I think we're going to start learning a lot more about what Camp Morgan or whatever we as the fans and media decide to call this fall camp. We're going to start learning more as time goes on. But as of right now, I think that's the biggest thing that stood out is just the shorter practices, but with higher effort.
I have DeLon Wright coming on in about 4 minutes. Anything you think I should ask DeLon Wright?
I have not a single clue, OC.
That's all right. I can do my own job. I don't need you to do it for me, I guess. I just was, you have good questions and good insights sometimes. So I wanted to be lazy and see if I could get one from you.
Hey, if you ever want to talk basketball, our Utah insider John Leone, he's the guy to talk to about Utah basketball. He's talking to recruits and stuff for us, and he's going to be leading the charge hopefully for us this fall when it comes to basketball.
All right, last thing before I let you go. And I don't know if anyone's asked this yet, and I know it's maybe not fair because you don't get to really watch practice, but one of the big things that is an early indicator or not with Utah football in recent seasons is, are they coming in prepared to tackle? How much tackling do we know or not know they are doing in this fall camp?
Well, Odom said that Morgan is giving them time to work on tackling, which it should be like I should be hearing applause across the valley right now that there's dedicated time to tackling for this defense, because that's been an issue for the last 2-ish, maybe 3 years, is just the inconsistencies. And I know that Kyle said that a lot of it was we didn't want to tackle as much in fall camp because then like the injury percentages goes up and stuff, and whatever his reasoning was for that. But if Odom can get these guys tackling better, especially in the safety room, who had the highest rate of missed tackles last year, like I think that this defense is in a really good shape because everybody else on the defense did, a little bit did above average in tackling. Dan Sorensen, our publisher at Utah, did a great breakdown of percentages of how many missed tackles happened last year, where they came from, all those types of things. So if you haven't read that, go over to Utah and check that out. But with tackling, I think that's a high priority and a high focus for Morgan, and I think Odom is a great coach to get that bug fixed with this, specifically the secondary and the safety room.
knocking on wood that everybody stays healthy, and obviously that we see them on September 3rd ready to tackle. Sammy, thanks so much for your time and all your work. We're live on air while you guys get to do your thing up there, so I won't be seeing you as much as I wished I would, but thanks for the time.
Yeah, no problem, OC. Thanks for having me.
Sammy Mora, one of our insiders over there from Ute Zone Wednesdays here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. All right. James, I get at least 5 James Peterson bonus points because we're, for the first time in the show history, we're on clock. All right. DeLon Wright.
Really proud of you, OC.
DeLon Wright, one of the all-time great Utah basketball players, is joining us next. He is going into the Utah Athletics Hall of Fame this year. That will be a Week 3 Utah State Hall of Fame game induction. DeLon Wright joins us next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. All right, during this upcoming Utah football season, the 2026 Hall of Fame class for Utah Athletics will be honored in week 3. That'll be the Utah State contest. And one member of that Hall of Fame class is kind enough to join us on the Sean O'Connell Show right now. The Utah basketball legend, the longtime NBA veteran, DeLon Wright here on the show. DeLon, welcome. How are you, sir?
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm doing really well. Just happy that I'm going to be able to come back to Utah and celebrate.
And it'll be fun to see you be celebrated. Obviously it's not at a basketball game. It'll be at a football game. But there are a lot of people right now that are kind of like championing and pining for the glory days of Utah basketball when we're producing NBA players, NBA draft picks. And there's a lot of heavy lifting that needs to be done before I think we return to that. But as an alum of this program and of this school, how much have you been able to see the changes and what's going on with Utah basketball, and how long do you think it could be before, or how quickly do you think we could get back to, when there's more DeLon Wright type players coming through the program?
Yeah, I like what the program is at now. We have a few good young guys that's come in that I've been able to check out. So hopefully they can grow and be the anchor and the core of the program for the future. And then, just keep on adding players. Like, we have the portal now, so we have to hit on a few gems like myself. I wasn't expected to do what I did at Utah, but somebody needs an opportunity out there, and hopefully they get an opportunity to come to Utah and produce, and, we'll be able to get back to those glory days.
It's probably an unfair question to ask how you made it happen, but, like you just said, you didn't come in with a bunch of fanfare. Maybe you weren't expected to end up being a consensus All-American and an All-Pac-12 type performer, but that is, of course, exactly what you were, and that's why you ended up being a draft pick out of this University of Utah basketball program. What was it that you were able to capture, or maybe that, it was a teammate or a coach, or maybe it's the village raising the kid, whatever it is, that allowed you to have the success you had at the University of Utah?
I really think it was my village, my family, my brother, obviously being an NBA player. I had a few, I feel like and my mindset coming in was always, I know I had 2 years to come in and hopefully try to change the program around, because I knew if I helped change the program around that it would make me look better. So I just always had to, put the team first, put the university first, and reap the benefits later once I left the school. And, my plan worked out perfectly, but I just didn't know that it was going to pan out like this. So that was always my vision on going to Utah, was to try to help turn around a program instead of going to let's say a UCLA where you can get lost in the shuffle. I want to go somewhere where I could stand out and leave a legacy.
Well, and you certainly did stand out. Obviously, first-round draft pick coming out after the college accolades that I just mentioned, All-American status, Pac-12, all Pac-12 team, all Pac-12 defense. Interesting for me, I grew up here in the state of Utah, moved here when I was 9 years old, and I kind of watched the transition of Utah being a basketball state and the University of Utah being a basketball school into some of that, maybe focusing more on football. And you were part of an era where the football team was growing into being in the Pac-12, the basketball team was growing into being in the Pac-12, and it's actually basketball that had individuals decorated faster, right? You and some of your teammates ended up being more, I think, more of a seamless transition into the Pac-12 than it took the football team a couple more years before they really achieved the ultimate success, and even from individual players. From your perspective as a basketball player, and I'm sure attending some football games and seeing all the hype that was going on there, and attendance has, since your era, dwindled at the Huntsman Center. I mean, what is that like for a player to be on the roster, to be on the team, and maybe your team is not the primary focus of the fan base anymore like it was when I was a child?
Yeah, like that's exactly how it was when I got there. When I got there, the year before, when I committed there, they were like 5-25. So I didn't get to go to a game when they weren't as good, but I seen videos and stuff. So even my first few games there, the Huntsman wasn't really packed.
Yeah.
As it was when I left. So for me, like I took into account all those things. Like all those things motivated me. Going to the football games, seeing them sold out, seeing how the fans, really embrace the football team. I always knew that if things went the right way, that the Huntsman would fill up and they would want to see us play. I just feel like they needed a player. They needed a few of the guys to come rally behind, and me and the other few guys that were there really embraced the fans, and we made sure we gave them a reason to come out and support us.
DeLon Wright is our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, former Utah All-Everything player who will be inducted into the 2026 Utah Athletics Hall of Fame class at the Utah State game this upcoming football season. The university always takes pride in their athletic departments developing NBA talent, developing NFL talent, developing Olympic gymnasts, developing people who go on to great success at the next level. And I'll sit here on Sports Talk Radio and I'll brag about it and say, yeah, this is a great university for that, without ever having taken that journey myself. So I'm asking you, how did the University of Utah develop you into being an NBA player? What did your time at the University of Utah do to prepare you for what you would eventually face in the NBA?
Yeah, so that was also another reason why I wanted to, play for the University of Utah. Larry Krystkowiak was, a former NBA player, former NBA coach, and that was his selling point to me was, our style of play was going to be similar to an NBA system. So they did a great job of implementing me into that system and letting me kind of have the freedom they gave me, which was to make decisions for, the team, whether that was on defense or offense. So I feel like the system playing under Larry Krystkowiak was very beneficial for me. And, the assistant coach did a great job also when he wasn't around of keeping me accountable and keeping the rest of my teammates accountable.
How many of your teammates do you still talk to on a regular basis? I mean, a lot of these guys are working in offices now, and obviously some of you are still in the NBA. Is there a Runnin' Utes group chat from the 14-15 season still?
No, we don't have a group chat, but I talked to about 6 or 7 of the guys, just checking in. I know everybody has their own lives now. Everybody the fathers now, so you just try to check in when you can, and I'm pretty sure one day once everybody's done playing and all settled in their new life, we'll all meet up and get to reminisce.
DeLon, where does being inducted into your alma mater's Hall of Fame, where does this rank for you? How meaningful is this for you as someone who's obviously gone on to a really healthy NBA career, and you've made an incredible career for yourself and a future for your family based on being a great basketball player. So I could see maybe college and the importance of your college experience kind of fading because of what you've done at the NBA level, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. How meaningful is this for you to be recognized by the University of Utah?
You know what? I was just thinking about that the other day. So when I was getting all the accolades for Utah, the Bob Cousy, the first team, All Pac-12, I was just like, okay, that's just another thing I won. Like, I'm not really, I was excited for it, but I always had bigger goals. And now that I'm pretty much done playing, it's very surreal to get inducted into the Utah Hall of Fame. So I would say it's up there with being drafted because, that's me leaving a legacy, behind for my kids and my grandkids to see. So I would say it's right up there with being drafted and playing in the NBA.
So what's going to be next for DeLon Wright? Have you planned out this next chapter? If the NBA career is indeed over. Do you know what you're going to do next?
Yeah, I just want to get to 10 years, which I did in the NBA. I'm not officially retired, but I've just been golfing and hanging in Los Angeles with my family, enjoying not having to get up and work out and the grind of a basketball season. So I haven't officially made plans, but you just say I'm golfing and just figuring out life right now.
Well, to be fair, though, I mean, you could do that, but you're going to get bored of even that at some point. Will you be a basketball lifer? Will you be a coach at some point? Will you be in a personnel department maybe somewhere? Could you see yourself back maybe at the University of Utah? They need a lot of help right now to develop this program. Are you going to be a basketball lifer who always works in some capacity in the game?
Yeah, when I was playing, I always said no. I always said I couldn't be a coach because they're at the office and at the gym lowering the players, and I always fought against that. But I'll say now that maybe in a few years I'll get back to it. But as of now, I don't really see myself doing anything with basketball. I would love to explore to do something else and excel at that. But if it all comes, push shove, I'll come back into basketball in some capacity. I would love to do something with Utah if I do, whether that's the academic department. I don't really see myself coaching, but something in the academic department or athletic department. Sorry, not academic, athletic.
Well, I'm always interested when it comes to professional athletes in this because, right, this time transitioning out of being an athlete can be tough. Being a basketball player is a huge part of your identity, and like if you're not going to stay in basketball, and we'll just go with that assumption for now. What else interests you? What else are you into or have you been into? Are you a guy who real estate? There's guys in fashion. There's dudes who are entrepreneurial. What intrigues you as you keep these possibilities open?
Yes, I am heavy into real estate. If I'm not watching golf, I'm watching like house tours.
Nice.
It's a YouTube channel where they show like $50 million, $100 million houses, and that kind of intrigues me to one day try to build something or live in one of those homes. I don't know, whatever happens. But yeah, real estate, I can see myself diving into that heavy. It's a whole new world, so I've just been trying to learn it and see if it's for me. But that's probably number one on my list.
Did you have a favorite NBA stop? I mean, you got to be a lot of different places in your career. Was there one season or one place that stands out for you as the most meaningful or the most fun or anything like that?
Yeah, definitely Toronto, being drafted there and being there for 3.5 years was probably my favorite stop just because, I got to see a lot of underdog type of players grow into superstar, star roles. That whole bench mob on that I was on a part of all became starters. So that was very unique for fourth year seniors to come into the NBA and become all-stars and seniors. So that was probably my favorite stop just because I was there the longest.
Your final stop, if it is your final stop, is the eventual world champions in the New York Knicks. What's it like to be part of a franchise going through that kind of like Renaissance revival and getting back to, the legendary championship season that they ended up with?
That was unfortunately my second team that did that. The Raptors won right when I got traded, and then the Knicks won. The next year I left. So I don't know if it's something. I don't know if it's me or if something's gonna come back around for me to win one day. But yeah, no, it was crazy to be a part of going to the Eastern Conference Finals the previous year they won it, and then them pretty much running it back and winning the finals. It was very unique to see the city come alive and support their New York Knicks. And I was happy for those guys because all those guys are good guys, and when I got one of my injuries, they all checked on me and made sure I was good. And I stayed in contact with OG the most. And, I was rooting for him. So I'm glad that they won. And I'm glad that New York was able to celebrate after 50-plus years.
I was just in New York last weekend, and I've had to travel there a bunch in recent years, and it's wild how just more visible the Knicks fandom is now that they have won that championship than it was even like 3 or 4 years ago. They've taken kind of the number one spot, it seems like, in the city again, over from the Yankees or from the Jets or the Giants or anything else. It's like New York is once again a Knicks town, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Even on the road, wherever we went, we probably had just as much fans as the opposing home team. So I didn't realize that was such a big fan base until I played for them, and I can see how that city can be a Knicks city now.
Before I let you go, DeLon, you're going in as an individual Hall of Famer at the University of Utah. When people are, talking about the great Utes of all time, your name is going to be put on that list because of your college accomplishments, that Bob Cousy Award, because of your NBA career that followed after, your draft position, all that stuff. What would you like Utah fans to know? What would you like Utah fans to say about you when it comes to legacy and being a Utah basketball player?
Yeah, just I was a good, humble guy. I never put myself before the team, and I knew that with the team success will come individual success, and that was always my main goal coming there. And I know that I'm getting the recognition, but it was truly a team effort from the coaching staff to the training staff, all my teammates, the fan base who motivated me, seeing them get behind me once the team started to, or not just get behind me, but get behind my teammates and I, once we start to get better and put a better effort into winning. And I just embrace Utah so much. All my golf head covers, I have Utah, everything all around my house, Utah. So I really am Utah through and through. And this is truly an honor for me to, get inducted into the Utah Athletics Hall of Fame. So I just, am very proud that I have gone into this. And I know I'm getting the recognition once again, but this is, a community award.
Well, congratulations. We look forward to seeing you at the game coming up, and congrats on a great career. Hopefully we see you around Salt Lake City more often, DeLon. Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure being here and talking to you guys, and I look forward to seeing you guys, coming up soon. That
is DeLon Wright going into the Utah Athletics Hall of Fame with the 2026 class. Zane Beatles, Daria Bijak, Katrin Smygan from skiing, DeLon Wright, Jerry Pym, former basketball head coach, and the 1991 softball team are going in. Good get, James. Awesome to catch up with DeLon Wright. Big fan of DeLon, and he carved out a really nice career for himself. A lot of, probably not the traditional path in the NBA, right? He was changing teams as often as he did, but man, making it more than a decade in the top league in the world, obviously, and that's an accomplishment in and of itself.
Yeah, and never a regular starter in the NBA, but always a key player off the bench and kind of spot starter in the backcourt. So, and you have to be at least that to make it 10 years in the league. So, like he said, shouting out the bench mob days in Toronto, which included his Utes teammate Jakob Poeltl as well on that team. And then unfortunately not being part of the championship a year later, but then having the same thing happen with the Knicks, a little bit lesser role with the Knicks there. But he always made some kind of impact no matter what the expectation was as to what kind of role he was going to be. Because by the time he got to the Knicks, his last NBA team a couple years ago, he wasn't expected to play very much, but when he needed to play, when he was called upon, he played a key role, even when he was at the end of the bench. I remember that in his Heat days as well, a few years ago. So I just think he was able to overcome the low expectations to become a star in college, and then he kind of continued to do that in the NBA to not be a star, but to have a high impact in whatever role he was in. I think that's a great legacy to leave.
Toronto, Memphis, meh. Dallas, great city. Detroit, for me, also meh. Sacramento, meh. Atlanta, great city. Washington, great city. Miami, awesome city. Milwaukee, neutral, take it or leave it. New York, he got to play in some pretty cool markets. So you can't call it anything but a great success of an NBA career. DeLon Wright will go into the Athletics Hall of Fame, and maybe someday we see him back in Utah. It is really cool. I'm glad that he said what he said at the end, where he's like, I really am still all Utah. Right? Proud alum, proud member of this Utah basketball community and this University of Utah Utes alumni base. So really cool to hear from DeLon Wright.
And hopefully he's in the NBA. But if this season he lands on a team, but if not, we hope to get him on during the Running Utes basketball season to talk Running Utes basketball with him as well.
Brief reminder for you, because I'm so excited about this partnership that we're doing with Southern Steer Butcher. Right now they have fresh all-natural chicken for $3.99 a pound. They've got boneless pork chops for $5.99 a pound. They've got black Angus ground beef for $7.49 a pound. And this is cleaner and better than the stuff that you're getting in the grocery store. Ethically sourced. This is the non-GMO, the non-pesticide, the non-herbicide. They're getting these from the premier meat suppliers in the country. Southern Steer has high-quality premium cuts of beef, chicken, poultry, pork, and much more. And I'm going to encourage all of you to, I know it's a trip, but to head down to Saratoga Springs, 1705 North Redwood Road. It's on the west side of the road. It's a modern, reimagined neighborhood butcher shop. They've got seasoning, salts, rubs, jams, salsas, marinades. They've got everything you need. But most importantly, right, you can go in, you can get your custom-cut, perfectly dry-aged steak for a gourmet experience. Or if you're just looking for something that you can pop in the air fryer, pop in the oven, pop even in the microwave, and have dinner on the table 20 or 30 minutes later, they can help you out there as well. Right now, they've got mealtime combos, 3 meals, 3 complete meals, mains, sides, meats, everything for $59. Tell them OC sent you. They're going to hook you up even more. Sean O'Connell Show wrapping up next. We'll do a little crosstalk with Spence on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Crosstalk brought to you by our friends at Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100 for $2,500 off 10 windows or more. Spence Checketts in the driver up next. He's watching some Patrick Ewing highlights because that's what they put on. It's his birthday today.
It is indeed. Let's be clear. I'm not just I didn't walk in the studio watching Patrick Ewing highlights on my phone.
It's on the ESPN.
And look, I would. It's my guy. I remember this. I was at that game. That was in Miami. That was in the playoffs.
Flex, okay.
What? A
Fine.
flex that I attended a basketball game in
Miami?
1997. It was in Miami. It was on the road.
Okay.
Oh, a flex that I attended a road NBA game?
Yeah.
Would you go to London last week or something? To go to Wimbledon?
I was working. Oh, not in Wimbledon.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Flex. Got to hear about Wimbledon every day. They were showing the top 5 Patrick Ewing dunks. I have a question for you.
Okay.
So I did a podcast this morning.
All right.
For my friend's son, who is trying to learn this business because everybody has a podcast now.
Mm-hmm.
He did a really good job, but he asked me something right off the top that I thought you would be good with. You've hung out and been around a lot of famous people, right?
Sure.
Athletes, MMA, football players. How would you articulate what famous people are like just as people? What are famous people? It was one of the first questions he asked me because we did some background, going to road games in Miami and such.
Yeah.
He said, what are famous people like? And I thought first, no one's ever asked me that question before. I thought for a second. And look, I'm talking about like Denzel Washington, like Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
That type of level of fame. And I honestly think they're all kind of weird. They're all just kind of like in their own world.
Well,
they have no frame of reference for how the real world actually works.
I haven't been around a lot of famous like actors or musicians. The very, very few that I have, it's been brief interactions when I was working security with like Sundance and things like that.
Flex.
But I will say this: they're theater kids. They're weird theater kids.
Yeah.
That have grown up
Right.
and become mega famous.
They're still that.
Yeah.
Who's the most famous person you've had a conversation with?
Taylor Swift.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's she's like the most famous
She's like
person
the most
in the
famous
world
person
right
on
now.
earth right now. Yeah.
What was T Swift like?
Aloof.
Okay.
But not in a rude way, but
Yeah.
just like, moving through a schedule, kind of like.
They're all just in their own world.
Yeah.
Was my takeaway. I've never chatted with T Swift.
Fun fact, it was when we were working Sundance, and she was like on this whirlwind thing tour with Sundance,
Mhm.
and the dude that worked for the same private security company that I was working for, that she then like basically requested, I want that guy,
Mm-hmm.
was the smallest, most unassuming of all the people.
Huh.
Like he's like 5'10",
Uh-huh.
and he was just really good at just kind of like navigating spaces without being rude to people, and I think that mattered to her.
Yeah.
And so he got to be on like her detail. She has her own private security team, but the production company that she was doing the thing with, whatever, she was like, yeah, that guy. And we were all jealous, of course, because we're like, oh man, you get to be on the Taylor Swift thing. That's
Yeah.
going to be awesome. And
Probably good money too.
he was
right?
like, dude, I sat in a chair outside of a hotel room door, but had to be awake for like 24 hours.
Huh.
And then she, gave him a big tip and
Yeah,
was
yeah,
very nice
yeah.
to him and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, they're alien. They live in a different world.
Mhm.
And I think the musician and actor celebrity is different than the athlete celebrity.
100%.
So and then like not athletes are all created equal. Like hockey guys are just cool guys.
Mm-hmm.
Fighters are either just cool guys or they're the worst that you've ever met in your life.
Just extremes on both ends.
Exactly. NFL players are, for the most part, like kind of cool but distant.
Yeah.
Because they're better than you.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
They're like, then they know it.
Right,
They're just
right.
like, do I need to talk to you? Do I
Yeah.
need to learn your name? Do I need to know who you are? But yeah, I mean, you can't generalize, I guess, too much.
Well, and you're smart to put them in different buckets. Like, musicians are a mess. They're all, it's chaos. Because I worked in that industry for about 2 years, and we were booking bands and, never really booked one of our acts with, I think our biggest band was like Soul Live for a while, if you know who they are. But, kind of having some access to backstage stuff. I can remember going backstage and seeing Ben Harper and meeting Ben Harper and the Criminals. Shout out. I believe that's no longer a thing. And just chaos. Like, they're all a mess. They all smell like patchouli oil. They're all
cigarettes.
aloof.
All of them smoke still.
Usually they're baked or drunk or both. Normally, not all of them. I went backstage at MSG to a Metallica show once because I went through a little Metallica phase in the 90s. And, yeah, just like musicians by far to me are the most chaotic, like strange level. And then actors, you nailed it. It's the geeky theater kid in elementary and high school that just continued that arc and suddenly is getting paid to be the same weird, dorky little theater kid. I will tell you this, Denzel Washington may have been the nicest, normal, famous person because I was really intimidated. He was good friends with Allen Houston's father and Grant Hill's father. So they were outside the Nick locker room once. And this was close to like Training Day, Denzel, which awesome movie, right? And I'm just like, I have got to meet Denzel Washington. Totally nervous, but approached him, and he started asking me questions. It's like, what are you into? What's your deal? You know, like super, super nice guy. I remember meeting Matthew Modine once. He was a weirdo.
Okay.
So actors, I think, on a scale, I'll go musicians most chaotic, then actors right after that. And then you put the athlete thing perfectly. They're just like looking at you, like sizing you up. And then if there's no reason for them to talk to you, they're not going to. If they don't have to, they're just not going to talk to you.
One of the weirdest things that has happened in my life is I've kind of become friends with Ray Lewis on accident.
Watch your back.
Because he was an investor in the PFL, so he was constantly present at events, and he was willing to do celebrity appearance type stuff and like pop on camera with us and stuff. So it's like, for whatever reason, we would have a ton of conversations backstage because I'm a big football nerd, and I would just pick his brain. And I think
gap assignments and such.
Yeah, well, not exactly that, but I think he enjoys talking story a little bit, and I'd be asking him about the glory days of Miami, and he told me a lot of fun stories about like how he was groomed into being like the guy that he ended up being at Miami. Like Warren Sapp was like, no, here's what you do. You tell them that you're not going to play unless they give you this car and that kind of thing. And I'm like, man, what a wild, like ESPN 30 for 30, but in person. And like, so you get that. He's a celebrity for like 5 different reasons, and one of them is like kind of scary. So you're like, huh.
Yeah.
But we're kind of buddies when I see him at least, and he like knows my name, and it's just weird. Man.
No, that's a guy you want to be on the right side of.
Yeah, and he's still could play. Like he is physically a different species than the rest of us. Yeah. So
I was actually just thinking about this because I don't know if you want to say aloof nature of some athletes. John Stockton and Patrick Ewing, ironically enough, are very, very similar because they're not bad guys. Like if you can crack the facade, but they're very, very private. Like most sports fans in Utah, in this market of a certain age, have a Stockton story, and the majority of them are not awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember being at the Jazz basketball camp when I was like 10 with my cousins Chad and Jay, and John drove a Honda Accord, and we were standing outside after practice after the camp had ended, and we were just standing by John's car, and we're 10 years old. Like, this is John Stockton's car, and John was like my first basketball hero. We all wanted to be John Stockton. And all of a sudden we hear this, hey, kids, get the hell away from my car. And we turn around, and I'm 10 years old. Like, it broke my heart. The old saying, never meet your heroes. I was so sad. But, you get older, and then I've interviewed John a bunch. He's far from a bad guy, and Patrick is far from a bad guy. They're just very, very guarded. But I thought, and this kid I did the podcast with, I think he's 19 years old. And he asked me a question that I've never been asked before. And I thought it would be interesting to get your perspective. Just like, what are famous people like?
Yeah. They're all over the place, the ones that I've met. Yeah. But there's some great ones. Randy Couture, don't meet your heroes. That's one hero you can meet.
I've heard about that.
He is the nicest human being I've ever met in my life.
What about Tito Ortiz?
Tito Ortiz is the dumbest person I've ever met in my life.
All right, good. That makes me feel better about what I perceive him to be.
You could probably work 2 years with Tito Ortiz, and he still would not remember your face or name the next time he saw you.
That tracks based off of my limited knowledge of Tito Ortiz.
Stay tuned for The Drive with Spence Checketts. Maybe he's got more famous people stories. Sean O'Connell show off tomorrow and Friday because PFL duties join us on ESPN on Friday night from Charlotte. We'll be back with the best Utah football camp coverage on